Chapter 1. Elaine's Hell Day. The phone rang again before Elaine Cooper could finish typing her notes from the last call. She glanced at the caller ID, another South Carolina area code, and braced herself.
Thank you for calling Premium Auto Warranty Services. This is Elaine. How can I help you today?
Yeah, I got a claim that got denied, and I want to know why the heck you people are jerking me around.
Elaine pulled up the claim member the man rattled off, her fingers whined over the keyboard with the practiced efficiency of 14 years in the call center trenches. The claim details populated on her screen: transmission repair of $3,200, denied for pre-existing condition.
I see the claim here, Mr. Richardson. It looks like the denial was issued because the diagnostic report shows evidence of transmission fluid contamination that predates your warranty purchase by several months.
That's ridiculous. My truck was running fine when I bought that warranty.
I understand your frustration, sir. Let me review the documentation more carefully.
Elaine scrolled through the claim file, genuinely trying to help despite the man's tone. She'd learned long ago that most of the anger wasn't really directed at her. People were scared about repair bills they couldn't afford, worried about getting to work, stressed about feeding their families. The diagnostic photos showed clear signs of long-term neglect, but she could see how a customer might not have noticed the gradual deterioration. She found a note buried in the file about recent maintenance that might support a partial approval.
Mr. Richardson, I can see you had the transmission serviced just 2 months after purchasing your warranty. Based on that service record, I may be able to get this reconsidered as a partial claim. Would you like me to submit it for review?
The man's tone softened immediately.
Really? You can do that?
I can submit it, yes. It'll take 3 to 5 business days for the review, but there's a good chance we can at least cover the labor costs, which would save you about $1,500.
After she ended the call and submitted the reconsideration request, Elaine leaned back in her chair and rubbed her temples. She glanced at the call queue, still 23 people waiting. The break room beckoned, but she could only afford a few minutes. She grabbed her phone and headed to the small break room where 3 round tables and a microwave constituted the extent of the Premium Auto Warranty Services employee amenities. Settling into a corner chair, she opened her KitcheBattlefield app and scrolled to last night's episode. The familiar chaos of the professional kitchen filled her phone screen. Chef Anton was in full form, berating a contestant about under-seasoned risotto, while the elimination timer counted down.
Your mise en place is a disaster. How do you expect to execute under pressure when you can't even organize your station?
Elaine put in her earbuds and lost herself in the drama, her shoulders finally relaxing for the first time all morning. She loved everything about KitcheBattlefield: the technique challenges, the creative pressure tests, the way ordinary people transform simple ingredients into extraordinary dishes. She taught herself to cook by watching the show, pausing episodes to take notes on knife techniques and sauce preparations. Her tiny apartment kitchen had become her laboratory, and KitcheBattlefield was her textbook.
Still watching your cooking show?
Elaine looked up to see Tricia settling into the chair across from her with a cup of coffee and a knowing smile. Her best friend looked frazzled. Her usually perfect blonde bob was mussed, and there was a coffee stain on her blouse.
It's called KitcheBattlefield, and yes, I never miss an episode.
Elaine paused the video where Chef Anton was demonstrating proper brunoise technique.
Did you see last week when Diane executed that chocolate souffle during the pressure test? I tried it over the weekend and actually got it to work.
You should write about cooking,
Tricia said, not for the first time. She slumped in her chair like someone who'd already had a long day despite it being only noon.
I keep telling you, you're better than most of the fantasy authors I read. You could write anything. Cookbooks, romance novels, those dragon books that make bank.
Elaine rolled her eyes.
I write fan fiction, Tricia. That's not the same as real writing.
Says who? You told me that KitcheBattlefield story you wrote got over 1,000 comments. People love your stuff.
That's different. Those readers already love the characters and the world. I didn't create anything original.
Elaine took a sip of her lukewarm coffee.
Real writers have English degrees and know about literature and symbolism and all that academic stuff.
Real writers write.
Tricia shot back with the kind of blunt honesty that had made them friends 12 years ago.
You write. Therefore, you're a real writer. Besides, half the people with English degrees I know work in call centers, too.
The familiar rhythm of their debate was comforting, even if Elaine never quite believed Tricia's confidence in her abilities.
Speaking of writing,
Tricia continued,
did you see that expose about Kitchen Battlefield last week? Apparently, half the drama is manufactured by the producers.
Don't ruin the magic for me.
Elaine protested.
I need to believe Chef Anton's fury is authentic.
Oh, it's authentic. The article said he's exactly like that off camera, too. Probably worse.
Tricia glanced at her phone.
Ugh, 3 missed calls from my sister. She's been trying to set me up with her neighbor's cousin. Apparently, he's stable and has all his teeth.
High standards.
Right? Because that worked out so well with Stable Derek last year.
Tricia made air quotes around stable.
Turns out, works in finance can mean sells questionable investment schemes to senior citizens.
The break room timer chimed, signaling the end of their 15-minute reprieve. Elaine closed the Kitchen Battlefield app with a sigh and stood up.
Back to warranty hell,
She muttered.
At least it pays better than fast food.
Tricia said, gathering her things.
Same amount of grief, but better health insurance. And hey, who knows? Maybe today you'll get one of those rare, polite customers.
Elaine returned to her desk and checked the queue. 28 calls waiting now. She put on her headset and clicked to accept the next call.
Thank you for calling Premium Auto Warranty Services. This is Elaine. How can I help you today?
This is Joe at Big Joe Auto Repair. I got a customer here with a warranty through you people, and I need to know what's covered before I start tearing into this engine.
Elaine straightened up slightly. The voice was gruff but not angry, refreshing after the morning she'd had. Professional, direct, no nonsense. She could hear the background noise of a working garage. Air tools, metal on metal, the organized chaos of a busy shop.
I'd be happy to help you with that. Can you please give me the warranty number and describe what's happening with the vehicle?
Customer says the engine's been knocking for about a week, getting worse. Won't start this morning. Warranty number is...
He rattled off the digits while Elaine pulled up the account.
I see the coverage here. It's a comprehensive powertrain warranty purchased 6 months ago. Can you tell me the year, make, and model of the vehicle?
2018 Honda Civic, about 90,000 miles.
Elaine reviewed the coverage details and the customer's maintenance history. Everything looked legitimate, regular oil changes, no red flags. Unlike some shops that tried to inflate claims or cut corners, this guy seemed straightforward.
The powertrain coverage should apply to engine repairs as long as it's not related to lack of maintenance or abuse. From what I'm seeing in the records, your customer has kept up with required services. You should be good to proceed with diagnosis.
What's your authorization limit for the repair estimate?
For a covered powertrain repair, we can pre-authorize up to $5,000 pending final approval of the complete estimate and diagnostic findings.
There was a pause.
You sure about that? Usually you warranty people fight us tooth and nail on everything.
Elaine smiled despite herself. Most shop owners viewed warranty companies as adversaries. She couldn't blame them, given some of the horror stories she'd heard from other departments.
I've been doing this for 14 years. If it's a legitimate claim with proper documentation, I'm here to help get it approved, not to fight you on it.
Well, that's refreshing. What do you need from me for the pre-authorization?
They spent the next 10 minutes going through the proper documentation requirements. Joe asked intelligent questions and took careful notes. Unlike many of the shop owners she dealt with, he seemed to understand the process and wasn't trying to game the system or push for shortcuts.
I'll email you the pre-authorization form within the hour,
Elaine said as they wrapped up.
Include photos of any damaged components with your final estimate, and we should be able to get this approved quickly.
Appreciate the help, Elaine. This customer's a single mom, can't afford to be without her car.
After the call ended, Elaine found herself thinking about the interaction as she processed the pre-authorization paperwork. Most shop owners treated warranty companies like necessary evils, but Joe had been professional and straightforward. He clearly cared about his customer, too. That remark about the single mom stuck with her. She submitted the pre-authorization and moved on to the next call, but something about Joe's voice lingered in her mind. Professional but kind, with an underlying weariness that suggested he'd been dealing with difficult situations for a long time, not unlike herself, really. The phone rang again, jarring her back to reality.
Thank you for calling Premium Auto Warranty Services. This is Elaine. How can I help you today?
Chapter 2, The Collision. Joe Kelly gritted his teeth as the sciatic pain shot down his left leg for the third time that morning. The familiar burning sensation traveled from his lower back, through his hip, and all the way to his ankle. He shifted his weight, trying to find a position that hurt less. But relief was a luxury he couldn't afford during business hours.
Hand me that torque wrench, Kevin.
He called to his newest employee, a 20-something kid with potential but a frustrating tendency to rush through diagnostics. The shop was busier than usual for a Tuesday. 4 vehicles waited for diagnosis, 2 were in the middle of major repairs, and a line of oil changes stretched out the bay door. The phone kept ringing, warranty companies, parts suppliers, customers wanting updates, and every shrill tone made Joe's jaw clench a little tighter. The 2018 Civic sat in Bay 3, its owner, a single mother of 2, according to the paperwork, waiting anxiously in their tiny customer area. Joe had seen that look before. The barely controlled panic of someone whose entire world depended on a machine that had just betrayed them. The preliminary diagnosis pointed to a spun bearing, which meant an engine rebuild at minimum, possibly a full replacement. Without warranty coverage, she was looking at a repair bill bigger than the car's value.
Kevin, did you call that warranty company yet?
Joe shouted across the shop floor, his voice carrying the edge that came from 20 years of dealing with bureaucratic runaround.
Not yet, boss. Been trying to finish this brake job first.
Joe exhaled heavily, the sound lost in the cacophony of pneumatic tools and grinding metal. His back throbbed, his hands ached from 30 years of turning wrenches, and now he had to deal with what would probably be another warranty nightmare. Few things in his professional life irritated him more than the song and dance required to get legitimate claims approved. He limped to his cramped office, each step a concentrated effort to keep moving forward. The worn desk chair creaked ominously as he lowered himself into it, making a mental note to replace it someday when the shop turned enough profit to justify such luxuries. For now, every spare dollar went back into equipment, or keeping his labor rates fair for customers who trusted him with their vehicles. He dialed the number on the warranty paperwork, preparing himself for the usual battle. Warranty companies existed to collect premiums and deny claims that had been his experience for 2 decades in this business. This would be another exercise in frustration, another hour spent explaining basic automotive repair to people who'd never held a wrench. After navigating an automated system that seemed designed by people who'd never actually needed car repairs, he waited on hold for 7 minutes. His irritation grew with each second of generic hold music. Finally, a human voice answered.
Thank you for calling Premium Auto Warranty Services. This is Elaine. How can I help you today?
This is Joe at Big Joe Auto Repair. I got a customer here with a warranty through you people, and I need to know what's covered before I start tearing into this engine.
He said, his tone professional but clipped. No point being rude to the person on the phone. They were just doing their job, but he wasn't going to pretend this was his favorite part of the day.
I'd be happy to assist you with that. Can you please give me the warranty number and describe what's happening with the vehicle?
The woman's voice was calm and competent, which was promising. Some warranty rep sounded like they were reading from a script they didn't understand. Joe explained the situation, providing the technical details about the Honda Civic's engine failure. Unlike most warranty representatives he'd dealt with, this Elaine person actually seemed to be listening and understanding the mechanical aspects he described.
I see the coverage here. It's a comprehensive powertrain warranty purchased 6 months ago.
She confirmed after checking the records.
Can you tell me the year, make, and model of the vehicle?
2018 Honda Civic, about 90,000 miles.
As she reviewed the customer's maintenance history, Joe prepared his usual arguments. He'd become skilled at fighting for his customers over the years, often having to educate warranty representatives about the actual mechanics of the failures they were trying to deny. Most of them seemed to think cars broke down because customers willed them to fail.
The powertrain coverage should apply to engine repairs as long as it's not related to lack of maintenance or abuse,
She said matter-of-factly.
From what I'm seeing in the records, your customer has kept up with required services. You should be good to proceed with diagnosis.
Joe blinked, caught off guard by the straightforward answer. No hemming and hawing, no demands for unnecessary documentation, no veiled suggestions that maybe the customer had somehow caused the failure.
What's your authorization limit for the repair estimate?
For a covered powertrain repair, we can pre-authorize up to $5,000 pending final approval of the complete estimate and diagnostic findings.
There had to be a catch. There was always a catch.
You sure about that?
I've been doing this for 14 years.
She replied, and Joe could hear something that might have been a smile in her voice.
If it's a legitimate claim with proper documentation, I'm here to help get it approved, not to fight you on it.
That was unexpected. In his experience, warranty administrators fell into two categories: the ones who denied everything on principle, and the ones who were too new to know better yet. This Elaine sounded like neither.
Well, that's refreshing. What do you need from me for the pre-authorization?
As they went through the documentation requirements, Joe found himself impressed with Elaine's knowledge and efficiency. She understood the technical aspects of the repair process and didn't waste his time with pointless questions or bureaucratic double talk. She knew the difference between a diagnosis and an estimate, understood why photos of damaged components were necessary, and even suggested organizing the paperwork in a way that would expedite the approval process.
I'll email you the pre-authorization form within the hour, she said, as they concluded the business portion of the call. Include photos of any damaged components with your final estimate, and we should be able to get this approved quickly.
Appreciate the help, Elaine. This customer's a single mom, can't afford to be without her car.
I understand. We'll take care of her.
After hanging up, Joe sat for a moment, the pain in his back temporarily forgotten. The call had gone remarkably well, professional, efficient, and surprisingly human. Most of his interactions with warranty companies left him frustrated and angry, but this one had been different. This Elaine person had treated him like a professional colleague rather than a potential fraud. He glanced at the clock mounted above his parts cabinet, nearly noon, and he hadn't stopped moving since opening the shop at 7. His body protested every movement now, 25 years of physical labor taking their cumulative toll. Sometimes he wondered how many more years he could keep this up before his body gave out completely. The steroid injections his doctor kept suggesting were looking more appealing every month, but Joe had always been stubborn about medical intervention.
Hey, boss. The Jensen car's ready for pickup? Kevin called from the doorway. And Mrs. Wilson's online too about her brakes again.
Joe nodded and reached for the phone, wincing as his lower back spasmed in protest. Another call, another problem to solve, another customer counting on him to keep their world running smoothly. But as he picked up the receiver, he found himself thinking about Elaine at Premium Auto Warranty Services. Her voice had been a moment of competence and cooperation in an industry that rarely offered either. The warranty claim would probably still require follow-up calls and additional paperwork. They always did. But at least he'd found someone on the other end who seemed to understand what he was dealing with. In a business where every interaction felt like a small battle, that was worth something.
Big Joe Auto, this is Joe, he answered, pushing thoughts of helpful warranty administrators aside as he focused on the next problem in a day full of them.
But throughout the afternoon, as he diagnosed the Civic's engine failure and documented the damage for the warranty claim, Joe found himself looking forward to his next conversation with Elaine Cooper. It had been a long time since dealing with a warranty company had felt like working with someone instead of against them. Maybe this customer's claim wouldn't be the usual nightmare after all. Chapter 3. The Pattern. The calendar on Elaine's desk showed it had been 3 weeks since the Honda Civic engine claim. She recognized the phone number on her caller ID and found herself sitting up straighter, smoothing her hair despite the fact that it was just a phone call.
Thank you for calling Premium Auto Warranty Services. This is Elaine. How can I help you today?
Morning, Elaine. It's Joe from Big Joe Auto. Got another warranty situation here.
She pulled up his shop information in the system, noting that his previous claim had been processed without a single hitch. Clean paperwork, thorough documentation, exactly what you wanted from a repair facility.
Good morning, Joe. What do we have today?
2020 Hyundai Santa Fe transmission issue. Customer has the premium coverage package. I need to know what documentation you'll need before I start pulling things apart.
Elaine quickly accessed the warranty information, her fingers moving efficiently across the keyboard.
I see the policy. That vehicle has comprehensive coverage including transmission. How many miles?
Just under 60,000. Owner says it started slipping between second and third gear last week. Getting worse every day. Classic symptoms.
That should be covered. The policy has a 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. I'll need the usual diagnostics and photos of the internal damage once you have it apart.
No pre-existing condition arguments? No suggestion that the customer should have somehow known their transmission was going to fail?
Joe asked, and she could hear the hint of dry humor in his voice despite the underlying skepticism.
Not from me.
Elaine replied, allowing herself a small smile.
Transmissions fail. That's why people buy warranties. If the documentation shows normal failure within coverage parameters, there shouldn't be any issues with approval.
The conversation flowed more easily than their first interaction, with a comfortable rhythm that spoke of growing professional familiarity. Joe's questions were sharp and practical, focused on getting his customer back on the road with minimal hassle. Elaine found herself appreciating his straightforward approach. No attempts to inflate the claim, no fishing for coverage that didn't exist. Just honest repair work that served his customer's needs.
Thanks for making this painless,
Joe said before ending the call.
Customer was worried sick about the cost. This'll be a relief.
Just doing my job.
Elaine replied, though they both knew this level of cooperation wasn't standard in their industry.
Appreciate it all the same. I'll have the paperwork to you by end of business.
After hanging up, she found herself staring at the phone for a moment. There was something about Joe Kelly that set him apart from other shop owners. Most of them treated warranty calls like adversarial negotiations, but Joe approached them like problem-solving sessions. It was refreshing in an industry built on mutual suspicion. 2 weeks later, Elaine was finishing up her lunch break when her phone lit up with the now familiar number from Big Joe Auto.
Premium Auto Warranty Services, this is Elaine.
Hey, Elaine. Joe again. Listen, I've got a situation with a denied claim that doesn't make sense.
She set aside her half-eaten sandwich and pulled up her system.
Tell me about it.
Customer with a 2017 Chevy Malibu. Water pump failed, caused the engine to overheat. Your company denied the claim, saying the water pump isn't covered, but I'm looking at the contract right now, and it specifically lists cooling system components.
Elaine frowned and pulled up the claim details.
Give me the claim number.
Joe read it off, and she examined the denial notes with growing irritation at her colleague's sloppy work.
I see the issue,
she said after a moment.
The claims processor categorized it incorrectly. They marked it as a basic coverage policy when it's actually premium comprehensive. The water pump is absolutely covered under cooling system provisions. I'll escalate this right now.
Really? Just like, really? Just like that?
The surprise in his voice was evident.
Just like that. It's clearly an error on our end. I'll call you back within the hour with confirmation of approval.
I appreciate that. Most warranty companies would make me fight tooth and nail for a reversal.
Most warranty companies don't employ people who understand that cooling systems are part of powertrains,
Elaine said with a touch of professional pride.
This should never have been denied in the first place.
True to her word, Elaine called back 45 minutes later with the approved claim. When Joe answered, she could hear the background symphony of his shop air tools, metal clanking, the organized chaos of automotive repair.
Big Joe Auto, this is Joe.
Joe, it's Elaine from Premium Warranty. I have the approval for the Malibu water pump and related cooling system damage. The claim has been approved for the full amount of $3,200.
There was a pause, and when Joe spoke again, his voice carried genuine warmth.
You just saved this guy a major headache. Single dad, 3 kids, works double shifts at the plant. This would have been devastating.
Glad I could help. The paperwork will be in your email in the next 10 minutes.
Elaine, can I ask you something?
Of course.
How long have you been doing warranty work?
14 years. Started right out of high school.
And you actually understand automotive repair? I mean, really understand it?
She laughed.
My first supervisor was an old-school mechanic who insisted everyone in our department learn how cars actually work. Said we couldn't properly evaluate claims if we didn't understand what we were looking at. Best training I ever got.
That explains it. Most warranty reps I deal with think engines run on wishes and good intentions.
Their conversation continued beyond the business at hand, drifting into the kind of professional camaraderie that develops between competent people who respect each other's expertise. Joe mentioned the challenges of running a small shop in an industry increasingly dominated by chain operations. Elaine shared her frustration with colleagues who denied legitimate claims out of laziness or ignorance.
How's that Honda Civic running?
Elaine asked as their call wound down.
Like a dream.
Joe replied.
Customer brought in homemade cookies last week to thank us. Chocolate chip. My guys demolished them in about 5 minutes.
That's sweet. Most of the time people only call me when they're angry about something.
Tell me about it. Auto repair isn't exactly a business where people are thrilled to see you either. Usually means something expensive broke.
I guess we have that in common, dealing with people on their worst days.
The pattern continued over the next 2 months. Joe would call about warranty claims, and Elaine would help navigate the often confusing paperwork and requirements. Their conversations gradually extended beyond immediate business needs, developing into something that felt more like professional partnership than the usual adversarial dynamic between shops and warranty companies. One afternoon in late spring, Joe called about a Ford F-150 with an electrical system failure that had Elaine frowning at her computer screen.
The system is showing a previous claim from Anderson Auto for the same issue.
Elaine noted, reviewing the history.
Did they not repair it correctly?
Joe's tone shifted, taking on an edge she'd rarely heard from him.
That shop has a reputation. They tend to do the minimum and get vehicles out the door. Customer switched to us because he was tired of going back for the same problem.
I see.
Elaine studied the claim history, noting the short time frame between the original repair and the current failure.
Since it's a documented repeat issue after an attempted repair, I can approve this as a continuation claim rather than a new one. That'll save your customer the deductible.
You can do that?
Joe sounded impressed.
I can when the documentation supports it. The warranty system is actually designed to be fair when it's used correctly by people who understand it.
Wish all warranty administrators understood that like you do.
Most of them do understand it. They just get overwhelmed by volume and default to denial rather than taking time to actually review claims properly.
Elaine paused, then added,
Plus, it helps when the repair shop submits clean paperwork with proper documentation. Makes my job much easier.
That's just good business practice.
You'd be surprised how many shops don't see it that way.
By their 3rd month of regular contact, they had developed genuine professional respect that was gradually becoming something more personal. Elaine found herself looking forward to calls from Big Joe Auto, and Joe had begun asking for her specifically when he called the warranty company. One Thursday afternoon, Joe called about a claim that had been pending for over a week, unusual for Elaine's typically efficient processing.
I hate to be a pain,
He began.
but my customer is getting anxious about this engine claim approval. Any way to expedite it?
Elaine checked the system, noting the claim was stuck in secondary review for reasons that made no sense given the straightforward nature of the repair.
It looks like it got flagged for additional oversight. Let me see what I can do.
She put him on hold and called the review department, explaining the situation and vouching for Big Joe Auto's consistently reliable documentation. When she returned to the call, she had good news.
They're approving it now. The holdup was some missing photos in their system, but I explained that your documentation is always thorough and that you have a perfect track record with us.
You went to bat for me?
Joe's voice carried surprise and something deeper gratitude that went beyond professional courtesy.
For the customer.
Elaine corrected, though she knew it wasn't entirely true.
But yes, I know your shop does quality work. You've never tried to submit a questionable claim in all the time we've been working together.
There was a pause before Joe replied, his voice softer than usual.
I appreciate that. Most of the time, I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle with warranty companies. Like they assume every shop owner is trying to scam them.
Not with me.
Elaine said firmly.
No,
Joe agreed.
not with you.
After the call ended, Elaine realized she had come to recognize not just Joe's voice, but the subtle variations in his tone that indicated his mood. She could tell when he was having a rough day by the tightness in his voice, could sense when his chronic pain was worse by the weariness that crept into his words, and had learned to appreciate his dry humor and obvious care for his customers. She had never met him face to face, had no idea what he looked like, but she felt like she knew him in ways that went beyond their professional interactions. It was an odd sort of connection, built entirely on phone calls about car repairs and warranty claims, yet somehow more genuine than many relationships in her life. Elaine opened her Kitchen Battlefield app, needing a familiar distraction from thoughts that felt increasingly personal. Tonight's episode featured a mystery box challenge. Contestants had to create a fine dining dish using only ingredients that might be found in a food truck. Chef Anton was in rare form, his critiques sharp but fair as he pushed competitors to think beyond their comfort zones.
Cooking is about transformation.
He told one contestant struggling with basic techniques.
You take simple ingredients and turn them into something greater than the sum of their parts. But first you have to master the fundamentals.
As she watched, Elaine found herself thinking about her own transformations, how her relationship with Joe had evolved from wary professionalism to something approaching friendship built on mutual respect and shared understanding of their industry's challenges. Like the contestants on her favorite show, they had taken basic ingredients, warranty claims, and repair estimates and built something more meaningful from those mundane interactions. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tricia.
Drinks tonight? I need to vent about my disaster date from Tuesday.
Elaine smiled and typed back,
Rain check? Kitchen Battlefield finale is tonight, and I have plans with my couch.
Your social life needs work.
came Tricia's reply.
But fine. We'll debrief tomorrow.
As Elaine settled in to watch Chef Anton put contestants through their paces, she found her mind drifting back to Joe Kelly and his voice on the phone, wondering about the man behind the calls that had gradually become the most consistently positive part of her workdays. It was probably just professional appreciation, she told herself, nothing more than respect for someone who took pride in his work and treated her like a colleague rather than an obstacle. But as she watched the Kitchen Battlefield contestants support each other through increasingly difficult challenges, she couldn't shake the feeling that she and Joe had been building their own kind of partnership, one warranty claim at a time. Chapter 4. The Voice Recognition. The bookstore cafe had become Joe Kelly's sanctuary over the past several years. Located just 10 minutes from his shop in a corner of Palmetto Bay's only shopping center, Books and Brews offered a quiet retreat from the constant noise of air tools and car lifts. On Friday evenings, when his employees had gone home and the shop was closed for the weekend, Joe would limp in, order his usual black coffee, and lose himself in whatever novel had caught his attention that week. Tonight his body felt particularly heavy as he pushed open the glass door. A transmission rebuild had kept him under the hood all afternoon, and his back was sending sharp reminders up his spine with every step. But the familiar scent of books and coffee already worked to ease the tension in his shoulders.
Large black coffee, please.
Joe said to the young barista who knew him by name but still wrote Joe on the cup every time. While waiting for his drink, Joe scanned the new releases display. Nothing grabbed him until he spotted a novel with a sleek cover featuring what looked like a professional kitchen. He picked it up, reading the back cover description about a cooking competition show where contestants battled for culinary supremacy under intense pressure.
Kitchen battle something.
He muttered to himself, trying to remember where he'd heard of this concept before. Hadn't that warranty administrator Elaine mentioned watching some cooking show? The barista called his name, and Joe tucked the book under his arm, deciding to give it a try. He'd been reading thrillers for weeks and needed a change of pace. After paying, he made his way to his favorite corner where a worn leather armchair awaited him, positioned to give him a clear view of both the cafe and the rows of bookshelves beyond. Elaine Cooper rarely treated herself to bookstore visits. Her budget was tight, and the temptation to buy more books than she could afford was always strong. But today had been particularly brutal at Premium Auto Warranty Services. A customer had spent 25 minutes screaming at her about a denied claim, something about a cracked engine block that was clearly due to overheating, not a manufacturing defect, before her supervisor had finally taken over the call. After that, the computer system had crashed twice, forcing everyone to restart and recover lost data. She deserved this small indulgence, she decided. The new Catherine Ryan Hyde novel had been released last week, and Elaine had been anticipating it since finishing the author's previous book for the third time. She loved Hyde's stories of underdogs finding redemption, ordinary people discovering extraordinary courage when circumstances demanded it. The bookstore was relatively quiet for a Friday evening. Elaine headed straight for the fiction section, her feet carrying her automatically to the H authors. Her fingers traced the familiar spines until she found what she was looking for, a small thrill of pleasure running through her as she pulled the hardcover from the shelf. With her prize clutched to her chest, she wandered toward the cafe section of the store. A coffee and maybe one of those oversized chocolate chip cookies would make this little escape perfect. The cafe was half full, mostly students with laptops and a few older people reading in comfortable silence. As she approached the counter, she noticed a man with graying hair sitting alone in the corner, reading a book with intense concentration. Something about his posture careful, like someone managing chronic pain struck her as familiar.
What can I get for you?
The young barista asked, pulling Elaine's attention back.
A medium vanilla latte and one of those chocolate chip cookies, please.
She replied, setting her book on the counter while she dug through her purse for her wallet.
Sure thing. Anything else?
No, that's perfect.
Elaine handed over her credit card, still searching for the rewards card she knew was buried somewhere in her purse. As she searched, another customer approached the counter beside her, and she heard a voice that made her freeze mid-motion.
Excuse me.
The man said to the barista.
This book mentions Kitchen Battlefield. Is that the cooking show everyone talks about? Never seen it myself.
The voice hit Elaine like a physical force. Deep, slightly gravelly, with the careful pronunciation of someone who'd grown up working class but had learned to speak professionally when the situation required it. That voice. She knew that voice.
Yeah, it's super popular.
The barista was saying.
My roommate watches it religiously. Lots of drama and yelling from what I can tell.
Elaine turned slowly to look at the man. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with broad shoulders that had begun to hunch slightly forward, the posture of someone who'd spent decades bent over engines. His hair was mostly dark but graying at the temples, and his face showed the lines of someone who spent a lot of time concentrating or managing discomfort. His hands, she noticed immediately, were the hands of someone who worked with them, strong but worn, with calluses and small scars that spoke of years spent wrestling with stubborn machinery.
Kitchen Battlefield is an incredible show,
she said before she could stop herself.
The contestants have to create restaurant-quality dishes under impossible time constraints, while the judges deliberately sabotage their stations and throw curveballs at them.
The man turned to her, polite interest on his weathered face.
Sounds stressful.
That's the appeal.
Elaine continued, her heart starting to race as his voice confirmed what her instincts already knew.
Watching them overcome the challenges, adapt their techniques on the fly. Plus, Chef Anton Hees, the head judge, has this way of pushing people beyond what they think they're capable of, and the food always looks incredible.
He nodded thoughtfully, studying her face with growing confusion.
You sound like you know a lot about it.
I never miss an episode,
she admitted.
I've learned most of what I know about cooking from that show. Proper knife techniques, sauce fundamentals, how to balance flavors under pressure.
Something flickered across his face, a moment of recognition followed by disbelief. Your voice sounds familiar. Elaine felt her heart skip. Yours too. They stared at each other for a long moment, the bustling cafe seeming to fade into background noise.
Auto warranty, they both said simultaneously.
Joe from Big Joe Auto, he said, his face breaking into a slow grin of amazement. Elaine from Premium Warranty Services, she replied, feeling a strange giddiness bubble up inside her. Joe Kelly laughed, a deep, genuine sound that transformed his face completely, erasing the lines of chronic pain and revealing the younger man beneath. Well, I'll be damned. I never thought I'd actually meet you in person. Me neither, Elaine said, feeling slightly dazed by the coincidence. Though was it really coincidence if they both loved books and lived in the same small town?
Same here. I've talked to you more than most people over the last few months.
The barista cleared her throat politely. Your latte? She held out Elaine's drink with an amused smile. Oh, right, thank you. Elaine signed the receipt, suddenly flustered as the reality of the situation hit her. This was Joe. The gruff but kind voice she'd come to know through dozens of warranty calls was attached to this solid, weathered man with kind eyes and work-worn hands. Joe gestured to the Catherine Ryan Hyde novel in her hands. Good choice. I read Pay It Forward years ago when the movie came out. Loved it. She has a gift for finding hope in difficult circumstances. Elaine hugged the book closer, surprised by his familiarity with the author. You read her books? I read all kinds of things. Fiction, biography, some poetry when I'm feeling ambitious. Joe shifted his weight, and she noticed him wince slightly. Helps me unwind after a day of crawling under cars. Keeps the mind sharp when the body's wearing out. She studied him with new interest. This wasn't what she'd expected from the shop owner. She'd imagined someone gruffer, older, less literary. Do you come here often?
Every Friday. My weekly escape from the garage. Only place in town where I can sit for 2 hours without someone asking me to look under their hood.
This is my first time in months, Elaine admitted. Books are a luxury I try to limit, and coffee shop prices don't fit well with call center wages. Joe pointed to the empty leather chair across from his own. Would you like to join me? I've got questions about this Kitchen Battlefield show now, and you seem like the resident expert. Elaine hesitated for only a moment before nodding. I'd like that very much. They settled into the corner chairs, the initial shock of recognition giving way to curiosity. Joe set his book aside. She could see it was the Kitchen Battlefield novel he'd been considering and leaned forward slightly, his elbows on his knees.
So all those times you were helping me navigate warranty claims, you were also secretly a cooking show fanatic?
Elaine laughed, feeling more relaxed as they fell into the easy rhythm she remembered from their phone conversations.
And all those times you were fighting for your customers' legitimate claims, you were secretly a bookworm?
Guilty.
Joe shifted in his seat, and she noticed the careful way he moved, like someone constantly managing discomfort.
The body wears out after decades of physical labor. Reading keeps the mind active when everything else is failing.
Is it very painful?
She asked before she could think better of the personal question. He seemed surprised by her directness, but answered honestly.
Every day. Some days worse than others. Today's not one of the good ones.
Elaine nodded, remembering the subtle variations in his voice during their calls that she'd learned to recognize.
I noticed sometimes on the phone there were days when your voice sounded tighter, more strained.
You could tell that from my voice?
Joe looked at her with new appreciation.
14 years of reading people through phone calls,
She explained.
You learn to hear what people aren't saying. Stress, pain, fear, anger, it all comes through if you know how to listen.
Joe stared at her for a long moment.
That's quite a skill. What else did you figure out about me just from our conversations?
Elaine took a sip of her latte, considering how honest to be.
That you care deeply about your customers, that you're honest to a fault, probably costs you money sometimes, that you're tired of fighting with warranty companies, but you do it anyway because it's the right thing to do.
Joe looked genuinely surprised.
That's remarkably accurate. Now I'm wondering what else you know about me just from warranty calls.
Not much else.
Elaine admitted with a smile.
Just impressions, really. Professional intuition.
What did you imagine I looked like?
He asked, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Elaine felt her cheeks warm.
Older, actually. Maybe because you own your own shop and have so much experience. I pictured someone in their 50s or 60s.
Early 40s?
Joe corrected.
Though some days I feel every bit of 60.
Me too. Early 40s, I mean. Not feeling 60. Though some days at the call center.
They fell into comfortable conversation, the strangeness of meeting in person gradually giving way to the familiarity they'd developed through months of phone calls. Joe asked genuine questions about Kitchen Battlefield, listening with interest as she explained the format, the judges, what drew her to the show. In return, she learned about his reading habits, surprised to discover they shared a love for character-driven stories and tales of ordinary people overcoming extraordinary circumstances.
So, do you ever write anything yourself?
Joe asked after they'd been talking for nearly an hour.
Besides warranty claim approvals, I mean.
Elaine tensed slightly.
What makes you ask that?
Joe shrugged.
The way you talk about books and storytelling, you notice things about character development and narrative structure that most people miss.
She hesitated, unused to sharing this part of herself with anyone besides Tricia.
I write a little. Nothing serious.
What kind of things?
Just stories based on shows I like. Kitchen Battlefield, mainly.
Elaine stared down at her empty cup.
Fan fiction, they call it. Nothing original.
Joe leaned forward with interest.
That sounds fascinating. Is it published somewhere online?
Yes, people seem to like it, but it's not real writing.
Why not?
Because I didn't create the world or the characters.
Elaine explained, feeling the familiar defensive rise up.
I just play in someone else's sandbox.
Joe shook his head firmly.
That's still writing. Probably excellent practice, too, learning to work within established parameters while developing your own voice and style.
The unexpected validation caught Elaine off guard. She looked up to find Joe watching her with genuine interest rather than the dismissal she'd expected from most people when fan fiction came up.
What about you?
She asked, wanting to shift focus away from herself.
Do you write?
A shadow passed over Joe's face.
No, but I think about it more than I probably should.
What stops you?
Time, energy, the fact that my hands hurt too much to type after a day at the shop.
He flexed his fingers as if demonstrating the point.
But mostly the feeling that I'm not qualified. No college education, no writing background beyond high school English.
Elaine nodded in understanding.
I know that feeling exactly.
Their eyes met in a moment of shared recognition, two people harboring similar dreams and battling identical doubts. The barista approached their table apologetically.
Sorry, folks, but we're closing in 15 minutes.
They both looked up, startled to realize how much time had passed. The cafe had emptied around them without either noticing.
I should get going anyway.
Elaine said, gathering her book and purse.
It was wonderful to finally meet you in person, Joe.
Likewise.
He replied, standing with a slight wince as his back protested the movement.
This was much better than talking about transmission failures and warranty deductibles.
They walked together toward the door, an unexpected awkwardness falling between them now that their chance encounter was ending.
Will you be here next Friday?
Joe asked as they stepped outside into the warm evening air. Elaine hesitated. She rarely spent money on coffee shops, and her budget was always tight.
I don't usually come this often.
You should.
He said, then added quickly.
If you want to, They get new books in on Thursdays, and the Friday evening crowd is always quiet. Good environment for reading.
She smiled, feeling a lightness in her chest that had been absent for too long.
I'll think about it.
They stood for a moment longer in the parking lot, neither quite ready to end the conversation but unsure how to extend it naturally.
Well,
Joe finally said,
I guess I'll talk to you next time a warranty claim comes up.
Yes.
Elaine agreed.
Or maybe next Friday.
Joe smiled, the expression softening his weathered features and making him look younger despite the gray in his hair.
I'd like that. I'd like that very much.
As Elaine drove home, she found herself replaying their conversation, struck by how different Joe was from what she'd imagined, yet somehow exactly what she'd expected. His voice had been familiar, but now she had a face to go with it, expressions to match the tone she'd come to recognize, gestures that brought his personality to life in ways phone calls never could. And he read books, serious books, the kind she loved. For the first time in ages, Elaine was looking forward to something that had nothing to do with kitchen battlefield episodes or warranty claims. She was looking forward to next Friday, to possibly seeing Joe Kelly again, to continuing a conversation that had somehow been months in the making. Sometimes, she thought as she pulled into her apartment complex, the most unexpected connections turned out to be the most meaningful ones. A warranty call had introduced her to someone who understood both the technical challenges of her work and the creative dreams she'd barely dared to voice. Maybe Friday evenings at Books and Brews were about to become a new tradition. Chapter 5. Opening Up. The morning rush of calls had finally subsided when Elaine saw the familiar number for Big Joe Auto appear on her screen. She found herself straightening in her chair and smoothing down her hair ridiculous, since this was just a phone call, before answering.
Premium Auto Warranty Services, this is Elaine.
Morning, Elaine. It's Joe. How are you holding up today?
His voice sounded warmer than it had in their early calls, the professional formality gradually giving way to something more personal after their chance meeting at the bookstore 2 weeks ago.
I'm doing well, thanks for asking. How about you?
She swiveled slightly in her chair, turning away from the call center floor as if to create a pocket of privacy.
Back's giving me hell today, but otherwise can't complain. Got a quick question about a Nissan Altima warranty, if you have a minute.
Of course.
Elaine pulled up the system, but before diving into the claim details, she found herself asking,
Is your back worse than usual?
There was a brief pause, as if the question had surprised him.
Yeah, actually. Slept wrong, I think. Sciatic nerves firing all the way down to my ankle like someone's jabbing a hot poker into my leg.
Have you tried seeing a specialist? My cousin had similar issues and got some relief from physical therapy.
Tried everything over the years. chiropractors, massage therapy, acupuncture, you name it, nothing sticks long term.
Joe sighed, and she could hear the weariness that came from years of managing chronic pain.
Just part of the job after 20 plus years under the hood. Anyway, about this Altima.
They discussed the warranty claim, a straightforward cooling system repair that would be easily approved, and Elaine walked him through the documentation requirements with the efficiency that had become second nature. As they were wrapping up the business portion of the call, Joe hesitated before speaking again.
So I finished that Kitchen Battlefield book I bought the day we met. Not bad, actually.
Really? What did you like about it?
Elaine found herself genuinely curious about his opinion, settling back in her chair despite the queue of waiting calls.
The pressure of the competition felt authentic, and I liked how the main character used cooking as a way to process her grief. Reminded me of how some people work on cars to think through problems. Good character development, too.
That sounds like something I'd enjoy reading. Did it make you want to watch the actual show?
Joe chuckled, the sound warm even through the phone connection.
Maybe. I caught part of an episode the other night when I was too wiped out to read. The one where they had to make fancy desserts in an hour with mystery ingredients.
The dessert pressure test. That was an incredible episode. Chef Anton actually complimented the winner's chocolate work, which almost never happens. He's usually brutal about pastry technique.
The bald guy with the permanent scowl. Yeah, he seemed pretty harsh, though I have to admit his technical critiques were spot on from what I could tell.
Elaine laughed.
That's part of his appeal. He pushes contestants to elevate their skills, even when they think they're already at their limit.
If you say so.
Joe cleared his throat.
Listen, I'm heading to Books and Brews this Friday as usual if you want to join me. No pressure, though.
Elaine felt a flutter of anticipation in her chest.
I'd like that. What time do you usually go?
Around 7, after I close up the shop and get the day's paperwork sorted.
I'll see you then.
After they disconnected, Elaine sat for a moment, smiling to herself. There was something about Joe Kelly that made her feel both comfortable and excited at the same time. He was so different from what she'd initially imagined based on their early warranty calls, yet exactly who she'd sensed he might be beneath the professional veneer. 3 days later, Joe called about another warranty claim. This one was more complicated, an electrical system failure that had been initially categorized incorrectly by the automated system.
They're trying to deny it based on normal wear and tear, but this is clearly a manufacturing defect.
Joe explained, frustration evident in his voice.
The wiring harness is completely melted in a spot that should never see that kind of heat buildup.
Let me look at the claim notes.
Elaine said, typing quickly.
Yes, I see the problem. The adjuster coded it wrong. This should fall under the factory defect provision, not general wear and tear.
Exactly. Customer already paid his deductible. He shouldn't be on the hook for the rest.
I agree completely. I'll recategorize it and escalate for expedited review. Send me the additional photos of the melted harness, and I should be able to get this approved by tomorrow.
You're a lifesaver,
Joe said, genuine relief in his voice.
This guy's a teacher, can't afford a $2,000 repair on his salary.
Happy to help.
Elaine paused, noting the pattern.
I notice you always mention something about your customers, their situations, what the repair means to them.
Does that bother you?
Not at all. It's refreshing, actually. Most shop owners just talk about the mechanical issues, not the people who drive the cars.
Joe was quiet for a moment.
Cars are just machines, you know. It's the people who matter. The single mom who needs her car to get her kids to school. The teacher who drives 30 miles to work every day. The elderly couple who can only afford one vehicle. Those are the stories that matter, not the fuel injectors or transmissions.
That's a refreshing perspective in this industry.
Elaine said softly, moved by his obvious care for his customers.
Yeah, well, I've been on the other side. Growing up, we had a car breakdown and no money to fix it. Mom had to take 3 buses to get to her waitressing job for 6 months.
Joe's voice carried the weight of old memories.
Never forgot what that was like.
The personal revelation caught Elaine by surprise. Joe rarely mentioned his past during their conversations.
That must have been difficult,
she said gently.
It was what it was.
His tone suggested he hadn't meant to share that much.
Anyway, I should let you get back to work. Will I see you tomorrow night?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too,
Joe replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. The next time they spoke was an unexpected call in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. Elaine had just returned from lunch when her phone rang with Joe's number.
Premium Auto Warranty Services, this is Elaine.
Hey, Elaine.
Joe's voice sounded strained, tighter than usual.
Sorry to bother you, but I needed to ask about that Chevy claim that was approved yesterday.
Immediately, Elaine could tell something was wrong. His normally steady voice had a clipped quality to it, words slightly rushed as if he was speaking through significant discomfort.
No bother at all. What do you need to know?
The parts approval, does it cover OEM components or just aftermarket?
The sentence was broken by what sounded like a sharp intake of breath.
Joe, are you okay?
There was a pause.
Not really. Back went out about an hour ago. Can barely stand up straight. Kevin's handling the repairs, but I needed to clarify the parts situation for the customer.
It covers OEM parts.
Elaine said quickly.
But Joe, you sound like you're in serious pain. Should you even be working right now?
A humorless laugh came through the line.
Probably not, but I live upstairs from the shop, so at least I don't have to drive home like this.
Is there someone who can help you? Get you medication or take you to a doctor?
I'll manage. Always do.
His voice softened slightly.
But thanks for asking. Most people just tell me to take some aspirin and get back to work.
This sounds like more than an aspirin situation.
Yeah, it's at the sciatic nerve again. Feels like someone's running electrical current down my leg.
He paused.
Sorry, didn't mean to dump that on you.
Please don't apologize.
Elaine said firmly.
We're friends, right? Friends care when other friends are hurting.
The word friends hung in the air between them, a tentative definition of what they were becoming to each other.
Yeah.
Joe finally said, his voice warmer despite the pain.
I guess we are.
Then as your friend, I'm telling you to go upstairs and rest. Let Kevin handle things for today.
Joe sighed.
You sound like Hemingway. He keeps giving me those reproachful looks whenever I wince.
Hemingway?
My dog, Golden Retriever. Named him after Ernest Hemingway during a phase when I thought I might actually write something someday.
Joe's tone carried self-deprecating humor.
Smart dog, you should listen to both of us.
Maybe I will.
There was a rustling sound, then a muffled grunt of pain.
Actually, I think I definitely will. This is getting worse, not better.
Good. Take care of yourself, Joe. I'll see you tomorrow if you're feeling up to it.
I wouldn't miss it.
He said with determination that made Elaine smile despite her concern. After they hung up, she sat thinking about their conversation. Joe Kelly was a proud man, not someone who easily admitted weakness or asked for help. That he had shared his pain with her, both physical and the glimpse into his childhood, felt significant somehow. Friday evening arrived with a light summer rain that left the air feeling fresh and clean. Elaine arrived at Books and Brews a few minutes before 7, scanning the cafe area for Joe. Not seeing him yet, she ordered her vanilla latte and found their corner table, claiming it with her purse while she waited. She had just settled in when the door opened and Joe entered, moving more stiffly than usual, but with visible determination. His face brightened when he spotted her, and he made his way carefully to their table.
You made it,
she said, unable to keep the pleasure from her voice.
Told you I would.
He lowered himself gingerly into the chair across from her.
Back's still angry with me, but the worst of it passed overnight. How was your day?
The usual parade of angry customers and questionable claim denials. But I did approve a major engine replacement for a family whose car broke down during their vacation. That felt good.
Joe smiled.
The small victories keep you going, don't they?
They do.
Elaine watched as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat.
Should I get your coffee? You look like you should stay seated.
That obvious, huh?
Joe grimaced.
If you don't mind, that would be great. Just black, please.
When Elaine returned with his coffee, Joe had taken out a paperback novel from his jacket pocket. She recognized it immediately and felt a warm flutter in her chest.
Where the River Ends. You're reading Nicholas Sparks?
Joe looked slightly embarrassed.
You mentioned liking his books when we first met. Thought I'd give it a try.
The gesture touched her deeply.
What do you think so far?
It's different from what I usually read, but I'm enjoying it. The relationship between the main characters feels genuine earned, you know?
He took a sip of coffee.
Though I have to hide the cover at the shop, or my guys would never let me hear the end of it.
Elaine laughed.
Your secret's safe with me.
They fell into easy conversation about books, switching to Kitchen Battlefield when Joe asked about the latest episode. Elaine described the pressure test in detail. Contestants had to recreate a complex dish just by tasting it, finding Joe to be an attentive listener who asked thoughtful questions about technique and strategy.
The winner figured out the secret ingredient in the sauce just from the color and consistency,
she explained.
Chef Anton said it was the best palate demonstration he'd seen in 5 seasons.
Impressive. That kind of skill takes years to develop.
Exactly. It's like how you can diagnose an engine problem just by listening to it run. Same principle.
Joe nodded approvingly. Good analogy. Experience teaches you to recognize patterns. As their coffee cups emptied, Joe leaned forward slightly, his expression becoming more serious. Can I ask you something?
Of course.
The other day, you mentioned writing fan fiction. I've been curious about it since then. What exactly do you write?
Elaine felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment. It's silly, really.
I doubt that.
I write stories about kitchen battlefield contestants, romances mostly, about the people behind the competition, what might be happening in their lives beyond what we see on the show.
Joe nodded encouragingly. That sounds fascinating. People are always the most compelling part of any story. I guess so. She twisted her empty cup nervously. I've always wanted to write a real novel, but I never felt qualified. No English degree, no formal training in creative writing.
Do you think all authors have English degrees?
No, but...
But what? Either the story's good or it's not. The degree doesn't write the book. Joe's voice carried a conviction that surprised her. Elaine looked up, caught off guard by his vehemence. You sound like you've thought about this a lot. Joe's expression softened. I have, actually. He seemed to debate with himself before continuing. I've wanted to write for years. Have notebooks full of ideas, character sketches, plot outlines. Never had the courage to actually try turning them into something real.
Why not?
Same reasons as you. No education, no training. And he gestured to his body, wincing slightly as the movement aggravated his back. This job is killing me slowly. By the time I finish a day at the shop, my hands hurt too much to type, my back screaming, and my brains fried from dealing with customers and insurance companies.
But you still want to write.
More than ever, actually. He looked directly into her eyes. The clock's ticking, you know. I can feel it. Another 5, maybe 10 years. And this body won't be able to crawl under cars anymore. Need to figure out what comes next. The vulnerability in his admission created a shift between them, a deeper level of trust and understanding. Elaine found herself sharing her own doubts and dreams in return.
I always thought I needed permission somehow, from a teacher, an editor, someone with authority to tell me my writing was good enough.
Maybe we're the ones who need to give ourselves permission, Joe suggested quietly. They sat in contemplative silence for a moment, the ambient noise of the bookstore creating a gentle backdrop to their shared confidences. Would you ever let me read something you've written? Joe asked finally. Elaine hesitated. Maybe. Someday. Would you share your story ideas with me? Someday, he agreed with a small smile, when I'm brave enough. As they prepared to leave, Joe winced visibly as he stood, clearly still in significant pain despite his attempts to hide it. Are you sure you should be driving? Elaine asked, concerned.
I'll be fine. The shop's only 10 minutes away.
At least let me walk you to your car.
He looked like he wanted to refuse, but then nodded.
Thanks.
They walked slowly to the parking lot, Joe's limp more pronounced than usual. When they reached his truck, an older model Ford F-150 that looked well-maintained despite its age, he turned to her.
Thank you for coming tonight. Talking with you. It helps. More than you know.
I feel the same way,
Elaine admitted. For a moment they stood close together in the warm evening air, neither quite ready to say goodbye. The parking lot was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the gentle patter of rain that had started again.
Same time next Friday?
Joe asked.
I'd like that,
Elaine replied. As she drove home, Elaine realized how much of themselves they had shared that evening, how the barriers between them were slowly coming down. From warranty administrator and shop owner to something more personal, more meaningful. What had begun as a professional relationship was evolving into genuine connection, one conversation at a time. And for the first time in years, she found herself wondering if perhaps her dream of writing wasn't as impossible as she'd always believed. If Joe believed in her abilities without having read a word she'd written, maybe she could start believing too. The rain picked up as she pulled into her apartment complex, but Elaine barely noticed. Her mind was already spinning with possibilities, both for her writing and for whatever was developing between her and Joe Kelly, the auto mechanic who read Nicholas Sparks and dreamed of being a writer. Chapter 6. The First Real Connection. Monday morning arrived with an unexpected crisis. Elaine had barely settled at her desk when her supervisor, Margaret, approached with a concerned expression and a steaming cup of coffee that suggested she'd been dealing with problems since before sunrise.
Elaine, we've got a situation brewing with Big Joe Auto Repair. One of their customers is threatening legal action over a denied engine claim.
Elaine felt her stomach tighten.
Big Joe Auto? That's Joe Kelly's shop. His claims are always rock solid.
Margaret nodded grimly.
That's exactly why I'm bringing it to you. The claim was denied over the weekend by the automated system, but the customer's been calling every hour since we opened, demanding to speak to a manager. Says he'll sue both us and the shop.
What's the issue with the claim?
System flagged it as pre-existing condition, but the customer swears the car was running perfectly until Friday afternoon.
Elaine frowned, already pulling up her system.
Let me take a look at it.
As she reviewed the claim details, her concern deepened. It was a complete engine failure on a relatively new Subaru, just outside the manufacturer's warranty, but covered under their extended warranty. The automated system had denied it based on oil contamination analysis that suggested long-term neglect, but something about the timing felt off.
The oil analysis report is what triggered the denial.
Elaine murmured, scanning the documentation.
But the car had an oil change just 3 weeks ago at the dealership.
Her phone rang and she recognized Joe's number immediately. The timing couldn't be coincidental.
Premium Auto Warranty Services, this is Elaine.
Elaine, we've got a serious situation.
Joe's voice was tense in a way she'd never heard before.
A customer's claim was denied, and he's threatening to sue me for recommending your warranty company. I need your help.
I was just reviewing the file,
Elaine replied, typing rapidly.
The system automatically denied it based on the oil analysis.
That analysis is wrong.
Joe stated firmly, his voice carrying the conviction of someone who'd spent decades diagnosing mechanical failures.
I did the inspection myself. This engine seized because of a manufacturing defect in the oil pump, not neglect. The customer followed the maintenance schedule to the letter.
The report shows metal fragments in the oil.
Of course there are metal fragments. The pump failed, which caused the metal parts to grind against each other. That's the result of the failure, not the cause.
Joe's frustration was evident, but underneath it she could hear something else. Fear. This wasn't just about one claim. This was about his reputation, his business. Elaine could picture the scenario perfectly. In a small town like Palmetto Bay, word traveled fast. One dissatisfied customer with influence could devastate a small business, especially when that customer was claiming fraud or incompetence.
Joe, I believe you, but I need evidence to override the automated denial. Do you have documentation of the oil pump failure?
I took detailed photos during disassembly. You can clearly see where the pump failed and how it led to the seizure. I'll send them over right now.
Good. I'll need to build a case for reversal, so include any service records that support your diagnosis.
Joe exhaled heavily.
Thank you. This customer is a prominent business owner in town. If he starts telling people not to come to my shop because I recommend fraudulent warranty companies.
He didn't need to finish the sentence. Elaine understood the domino effect that could destroy a small business built on reputation and word-of-mouth referrals.
I understand. This is my priority today. I'll call you as soon as I have any updates.
After they hung up, Elaine immediately forwarded the claim to the senior review team with her preliminary findings. She marked it urgent and added a note about potential legal action, which would expedite the process significantly. Within minutes, Joe sent the promised photos along with a detailed explanation of the mechanical failure that read like a technical manual. Elaine studied them carefully, noting the clear evidence of manufacturing defect in the oil pump assembly. She attached these to the claim file and called the senior adjuster directly.
Frank, this is Elaine Cooper. I need your eyes on an urgent claim reversal.
The Subaru engine failure, already pulling it up, customers raising hell.
The denial was incorrect. I have photographic evidence showing manufacturing defect in the oil pump. The metal contamination in the oil was caused by the failure, not neglect.
Let me see those photos.
Elaine walked him through the evidence, explaining the mechanical failure sequence as Joe had described it to her. Her years of training in automotive systems paid off as she translated Joe's technical expertise into warranty language that Frank could understand and approve. After a thorough review, Frank agreed the denial should be reversed.
I'll approve the claim for the full amount, but it'll take until tomorrow to process the reversal and issue payment authorization.
The customer's threatening legal action today. We need to resolve this immediately.
Best I can do is expedite the paperwork, but the system still requires overnight processing for payment authorization.
Elaine thought quickly.
Can we at least get a verbal approval I can relay to the shop? Something official they can share with the customer today?
I can email a preliminary approval notice. Not the same as payment authorization, but it confirms we're covering the claim.
That'll help. Thank you, Frank.
As soon as she received the email confirmation, Elaine called Joe back.
Joe, I have good news. The senior adjuster has reviewed the evidence and agrees this was a manufacturing defect. The claim is being approved for the full amount.
Really? That's fantastic news.
The official payment will process overnight, but I have an email confirmation I can forward to you right now. Will that help with your customer?
It should. At least he'll know he's not on the hook for a $7,000 repair. Elaine, I can't thank you enough. You have no idea what this means for my shop.
I'm just doing my job,
she replied, though they both knew this level of intervention went well beyond her standard responsibilities.
No, you went to bat for me. That means everything.
Elaine forwarded the approval email while they were still on the phone.
Check your email. You should have the confirmation now.
Got it? This is perfect. I'll show it to Mr. Davidson right away.
Let me know how it goes,
Elaine said.
I'll call you as soon as I talk to him.
After they hung up, Elaine realized how personally invested she had become in this situation. It wasn't just a warranty claim anymore. It was about helping someone she cared about. The line between professional and personal had blurred significantly. 3 hours passed with no word from Joe. Elaine found herself checking her phone repeatedly, wondering what had happened with the angry customer. She was just about to call him when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number.
Premium Auto Warranty Services, this is Elaine.
Yes, hello, this is Robert Davidson. I understand you're the warranty administrator handling my Subaru claim.
Elaine straightened in her chair, immediately on alert. This was the angry customer, though he sounded remarkably calm now.
Yes, Mr. Davidson, I've been working on your claim today.
I want to apologize for my behavior earlier. Joe Kelly just showed me the approval confirmation and explained how you personally intervened to correct the mistake.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. I'm glad we could resolve the issue.
Joe spoke very highly of you, said you're the most competent warranty administrator he's ever worked with.
The man chuckled.
Given how much he usually complains about warranty companies, that's high praise indeed.
Elaine felt a warmth spread through her chest at the second-hand compliment.
That's very kind of him to say.
Anyway, I wanted to thank you directly and apologize for threatening legal action. I was panicked about potentially facing a repair bill bigger than my car's worth.
That's completely understandable, Mr. Davidson. I'm just glad we could correct the error quickly.
After the call ended, Elaine sat back in her chair, smiling. Not only had the crisis been averted, but Joe had defended her to his customer, praised her work publicly. That meant more than she had expected. Her phone rang again, this time with Joe's familiar number.
I just spoke with Mr. Davidson,
she said by way of greeting.
He called you? Good. I told him he should apologize for the legal threats.
He did. He also mentioned you spoke highly of me.
Joe cleared his throat and she could hear embarrassment in his voice.
Well, you deserve it. You saved my shop from a potential disaster.
Happy to help.
Listen,
Joe said, his voice taking on a more personal tone.
My business line isn't the best for calls like this. Too many interruptions, too many people around. Would it be okay if I gave you my personal cell number for urgent situations like this?
Elaine hesitated only briefly. Exchanging personal numbers was crossing another boundary in their relationship.
That makes sense. I can give you mine too.
They exchanged numbers, and Elaine saved Joe's contact in her personal phone with a small thrill of anticipation.
This will be easier for Friday night planning too.
True. Speaking of which, are we still on for this week?
Absolutely, I wouldn't miss it.
After they hung up, Elaine stared at Joe's name and number in her phone contacts. There was something significant about this small change, having his personal number, being able to reach him directly rather than through the shop. The boundary between their professional and personal relationship had shifted decisively. The rest of the week passed without major incidents. Elaine and Joe exchanged a few text messages, nothing substantive, just brief check-ins. Davidson picked up his car today, all good. New Kitchen Battlefield episode tonight, incredible dessert challenge. Small connections that maintained the thread between them. On Thursday afternoon, however, everything changed again. Elaine was handling a difficult call with a repair shop in Charleston when her supervisor approached, looking more serious than usual.
Elaine, I need to speak with you when you're finished with that call.
The grave tone made Elaine's stomach clench. She wrapped up the call as quickly as she could and followed Margaret to the small conference room.
Is everything okay?
We've received a complaint about your handling of the Subaru claim for Big Joe Auto Repair.
A complaint? From whom?
Another repair shop in Palmetto Bay, Anderson Auto. They're claiming you showed favoritism by reversing a claim denial for a competitor.
That's ridiculous. I reversed the denial because it was incorrect. The evidence clearly showed a manufacturing defect.
I know that, and I've reviewed the claim myself. Your actions were completely appropriate and justified by the documentation. But Anderson Auto is one of our largest repair partners in that region. They're threatening to stop recommending our warranty products if we don't address what they call preferential treatment for Big Joe Auto.
So they want us to deny legitimate claims from their competitors? That's unethical.
I agree completely. But I need to document that I address their concern with you. Consider yourself officially reminded to follow proper procedures for all claims, which you already did in this case.
Elaine understood the subtext. This was a formality to appease an important business partner, not a genuine reprimand.
Of course. I always follow proper procedures.
Good. That's all I needed to say officially. Unofficially, Anderson Auto has a reputation for inflating claims and cutting corners on repairs. Their complaint says more about them than about you.
After the meeting, Elaine returned to her desk, still unsettled by the complaint. She considered texting Joe about it, but decided against it. This was internal company politics, not something he needed to worry about. But at 5 o'clock, as she was preparing to leave for the day, her phone rang with Joe's personal number.
Hello?
Elaine, it's Joe. I just heard something disturbing and wanted to check if you're okay.
She frowned, stepping outside the building for privacy.
What did you hear?
Anderson Auto's spreading rumors that you're giving my shop special treatment and that they filed a complaint against you. Is that true?
Elaine sighed, not surprised that word had already reached Joe in their small town.
Yes, they filed a complaint, but my supervisor knows it's baseless. I'm not in any trouble.
This is my fault. They've had it out for my shop for years because I don't play their games.
It's not your fault, Joe. Anderson Auto has a reputation even within our company. They're just trying to leverage their size to bully us.
Still, I don't want you catching heat because you helped me.
I helped a customer with a legitimate claim.
Elaine corrected firmly.
That's my job.
There was a pause before Joe spoke again, his voice lower and more intense.
Well, I want you to know I went to bat for you too. Anderson's owner, Mike, was at the parts shop this morning, running his mouth about how you only approved my claim because we're friends. I set him straight in front of everyone.
What did you say?
That you're the most professional warranty administrator in the business, and if his claims get denied more often than mine, maybe he should look at the quality of his work instead of making accusations about yours.
Elaine felt a rush of gratitude and something deeper, a fierce protectiveness that surprised her.
You didn't have to do that.
Yes, I did. He was attacking your professional reputation. I couldn't let that stand.
The protectiveness in his voice touched her deeply. In their industry, professional reputation was everything, and Joe had defended hers publicly against a competitor.
Thank you,
she said softly.
No need to thank me for telling the truth.
Joe cleared his throat.
Anyway, I wanted to make sure you were okay.
I am. Really.
Good. Still on for tomorrow night?
Absolutely.
After they hung up, Elaine sat in her car for a long moment, processing the events of the day. Joe had defended her to an angry customer and stood up for her professional reputation against a competitor. She had fought for his shop's integrity with her company. They were no longer just warranty administrator and shop owner. They had become allies, defenders of each other in a difficult industry. And somewhere along the way, Elaine realized they had become friends. Real friends who looked out for each other, who cared about each other's well-being beyond the transactions of business. She started her car with a smile, looking forward to Friday night more than ever. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Friday evening at Books and Brews felt different from their previous meetings. When Joe walked in and spotted Elaine already waiting with his black coffee, the smile that lit his face was warmer, more personal than before.
You remembered my order,
he said, settling carefully into the chair across from her.
Hard to forget. Black coffee is pretty straightforward.
Elaine pushed the cup toward him.
How's your back today?
Better than last week. The anti-inflammatory prescription is helping some.
He took a grateful sip.
How was the rest of your week after the Anderson auto drama?
They fell into conversation easily, discussing books and kitchen battlefield as usual, but with a new layer of comfort between them. The Davidson claim crisis and Anderson auto complaint had shifted something fundamental in their relationship. They had each other's backs now, professionally and personally.
I've been thinking,
Joe said during a lull in conversation,
about what you said regarding your writing.
What about it?
That you don't feel qualified to write a real novel because you lack an English degree.
His eyes held hers steadily.
I think that's nonsense.
Elaine blinked in surprise.
Excuse me?
You're intelligent, observant, and clearly understand story structure. If you can write fan fiction that gets thousands of reader comments, the degree is just paper.
It's not that simple.
It's exactly that simple.
Joe leaned forward, wincing slightly as his back protested the movement.
Look, I know we haven't known each other long, but I've talked to you almost every day for months. I can tell you have the intelligence and sensitivity to write something meaningful.
You've never even read anything I've written,
Elaine pointed out.
I don't need to.
Joe's expression was earnest, almost fierce.
I can tell from how you talk about books, how you analyze Kitchen Battlefield episodes, how you construct your thoughts when we discuss stories. You have what it takes.
And what about you?
Elaine shot back, using his words against him.
You said you want to write too. What's stopping you?
Joe glanced down at his hands, flexing his fingers unconsciously.
Physical limitations, for one, and the same doubts you have, I guess. Who am I to think I could write a book? Just a mechanic with a high school education?
That's nonsense,
Elaine said firmly, deliberately echoing his earlier statement.
You're well-read, insightful, and you've lived a real life with real experiences. That matters more than any degree.
He looked up, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth.
Using my own words against me, huh?
If they're true for me, they're true for you too.
They held each other's gaze for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Mutual recognition, shared determination, the acknowledgement that maybe they could both stop making excuses.
Maybe,
Joe finally said,
we both need to stop making excuses and just try. What's the worst that could happen?
Humiliating failure?
Elaine suggested with a half-smile.
Or we might surprise ourselves.
Joe reached across the table, hesitating briefly before placing his hand over hers.
Sometimes all we need is someone who believes in us.
The warmth of his hand on hers sent a flutter through Elaine's chest. This was new territory for them, deliberate physical contact, explicit statements of faith in each other.
Maybe you're right,
she said softly. He squeezed her hand gently before withdrawing it.
I usually am, about cars at least. The rest is debatable.
The tension broke with their shared laughter, but something had shifted between them yet again. The professional collaboration had evolved into friendship, and now that friendship was opening the door to something more. As they prepared to leave the bookstore, Joe paused, looking at her with an expression she hadn't seen before.
Thank you for having my back this week,
he said quietly.
With the Davidson claim, that could have been devastating for my shop.
Thank you for defending me to Anderson Auto. Not many people would have done that.
Anytime.
Joe hesitated.
I mean that. Anytime you need someone in your corner, I'm there.
Elaine felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the summer evening.
Same goes for you, Joe. Anytime.
They walked to their cars together, the silence between them comfortable and full of new possibilities. When they reached Elaine's car, Joe looked like he wanted to say more, maybe even move closer, but instead he simply smiled.
See you next Friday?
I'll be here,
Elaine promised.
And maybe I'll bring something I've written, if you're still interested.
Joe's face brightened considerably.
I would like that very much.
Driving home, Elaine could still feel the gentle pressure of Joe's hand on hers, still see the sincerity in his eyes when he said he believed in her. For the first time in years, she found herself opening the document she'd abandoned months ago, a kitchen battlefield romance she'd started, but never had the courage to finish. Tonight, she would write, not because she suddenly felt qualified or confident, but because someone believed she could. Sometimes, perhaps, that was enough to begin. Chapter 7. Outside Business Hours. Elaine stared at her phone on Sunday afternoon, Joe's contact information displayed on the screen. Her thumb hovered over the message icon. They had never contacted each other on weekends before, never reached out for non-work reasons. This would cross another boundary in their evolving relationship. Taking a deep breath, she typed a simple message.
Just watched the Kitchen Battlefield finale. Chef Anton actually smiled. Best episode of the season.
She hit send before she could second-guess herself, then set the phone down and busied herself with laundry folding to distract from waiting for a response. Less than 2 minutes later, her phone chimed.
Who won? No spoilers, recorded it but haven't watched yet.
Elaine smiled, relief and pleasure mingling as she typed back.
My lips are sealed, but you won't believe the final pressure test.
Planning to watch tonight after I finish the shop's quarterly tax prep. These IRS forms are killing me.
Working on Sunday.
Shop's closed, but paperwork never ends. Running a small business means weekends are just different workdays.
Elaine hesitated, then typed.
Need a break? I could call and tell you about this amazing book I just finished.
3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Joe considering his response.
That sounds much better than Schedule C deductions. Call anytime.
Elaine's heart beat a little faster as she pressed the call button. This was their first non-work call, the first time they'd spoken outside the context of warranties or their Friday coffee meetings.
Hey.
Joe answered, his voice warmer and more relaxed than she'd ever heard it during business hours.
Hey yourself, how bad is the paperwork?
Soul-crushing. The government must employ people whose sole job is making forms as complicated as possible.
Elaine laughed.
Probably the same people who design our claims processing system.
Must be. So tell me about this book that's better than tax forms, which is admittedly a pretty low bar.
It's the new Catherine Ryan Hyde novel. Finished it last night and couldn't stop thinking about it.
As she described the story of an unlikely friendship between a grieving widow and a troubled teenager, Elaine found herself speaking with increasing animation. Joe asked thoughtful questions, showing genuine interest in both the plot and her reaction to it.
The way she develops the relationship feels so authentic,
Elaine explained.
No forced sentiment, just 2 broken people finding strength in each other. You should read it,
she said finally.
I think you'd appreciate how she builds the emotional foundation.
Add it to my list,
Joe replied.
Speaking of books, I finished that Nicholas Sparks novel, You Were Right About the Ending.
Did you cry?
I will neither confirm nor deny any moisture in the vicinity of my eyes,
he said, making her laugh again. Their conversation drifted from books to movies, to Joe's golden retriever, who had apparently been giving him judgmental looks all day for working instead of playing.
His name's Hemingway,
Joe admitted with a trace of embarrassment.
Named him after Ernest Hemingway during a phase when I thought I might actually write something someday.
That's a perfect name for a writer's dog.
Aspirational, at least.
Joe paused.
So when do I get to read something you've written?
Elaine felt her cheeks warm despite being alone in her apartment.
I'm still working on it. Maybe someday.
No pressure, but my offer stands.
By the time they ended the call, nearly an hour had passed, and Elaine realized she'd been smiling the entire time. Talking with Joe outside of work revealed a different side of him, more relaxed, funnier, the gruff exterior softening to show the thoughtful man beneath. Tuesday evening, Elaine's phone chimed with a text message from Joe.
Watching Kitchen Battlefield finale now. Is Chef Anton always this brutal, or is it just for TV?
She smiled and responded,
Both. I met him at a cookbook signing once. Exactly the same in person.
You met him. Details, please.
He signed my Kitchen Battlefield cookbook and told me my technique for holding the book open was all wrong. Classic Mark.
Now I understand the appeal. The man's consistent.
Their text exchanges continued throughout the week, brief messages about their days, book recommendations, commentary on Kitchen Battlefield episodes. Each message built a stronger connection between them, filling in the spaces between Friday coffee meetings with small glimpses into their daily lives. On Thursday, Joe sent a photo of Hemingway sprawled dramatically across a stack of invoices.
Hemingway has strong opinions about my work-life balance.
Elaine laughed out loud at the golden retriever's expressive face.
He's clearly an excellent business consultant.
He also critiques my cooking. Most discerning palate in Palmetto Bay.
What does he enjoy besides paperwork sabotage?
Long walks, tennis balls, and stealing my spot on the couch the moment I stand up.
These small exchanges, trivial as they might seem, built a foundation of intimacy between them. Elaine learned that Joe woke at 5 every morning to walk Hemingway before opening the shop at 7. Joe discovered that Elaine stress-baked when difficult customers pushed her too far, resulting in elaborate desserts that she shared with neighbors to avoid eating them all herself. By the time Friday arrived, Elaine felt as if they'd spent the week together, despite only communicating through texts and one phone call. When she entered Books and Brews and saw Joe already waiting with both their drinks, the smile that spread across her face was automatic and genuine.
You beat me here,
she said, settling into the chair across from him.
Shop was quiet this afternoon, so I closed early.
Joe pushed her vanilla latte toward her.
Thought I'd grab the drinks this time.
Thank you.
She took a sip, noting how he'd remembered her exact order without asking.
How's your back today?
Tolerable. The morning walk with Hemingway actually helps loosen things up some.
They fell into easy conversation, discussing the books they'd been reading and the Kitchen Battlefield finale that Joe had finally watched. There was a new comfort between them, the foundation laid by their week of personal messages making their interaction feel natural and relaxed.
I have something for you,
Joe said, reaching into his worn leather messenger bag. He pulled out a book and slid it across the table. Elaine picked it up.
On Writing by Stephen King?
Best book about the writing process I've ever read. King talks about craft, but also about believing in yourself enough to just start.
Joe shrugged as if it were no big deal, but the slight flush on his neck suggested otherwise.
Thought you might find it helpful.
The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched her deeply. He'd not only bought her a gift, but had chosen something specifically related to her dreams and struggles.
You bought this for me?
Saw it at the used bookstore downtown, and thought of you.
Joe's voice was carefully casual.
Seemed like something you might enjoy.
Thank you,
Elaine said softly, running her fingers over the cover.
I'll start it this weekend.
As the evening progressed, Elaine noticed how Joe seemed more animated than usual, gesturing with his hands as he described a particularly challenging transmission rebuild he'd completed that week. When he talked about the technical aspects of automotive repair, his whole demeanor changed. The chronic pain lines in his face smoothed out, replaced by the enthusiasm of someone discussing work they genuinely loved.
Sorry,
he said, catching himself mid-explanation about hydraulic pressure systems.
I tend to go on about the mechanical stuff. Must be boring for someone who works with the paperwork side.
Not at all,
Elaine replied truthfully.
I like hearing you talk about something you're passionate about. Your whole face lights up.
Joe looked surprised, then slightly embarrassed by her observation.
Does it?
In a good way. You become completely engaged, like you're solving a puzzle that matters.
A comfortable silence fell between them, weighted with something new and undefined. Joe's eyes met hers, held for a moment longer than usual, and Elaine felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the caffeine in her latte.
What about you?
Joe asked finally.
What makes you light up besides Kitchen Battlefield?
Books, obviously. Good writing that makes me feel something real.
Elaine thought for a moment.
And the ocean. I try to get to the beach early mornings sometimes before the tourists arrive. There's something about watching the sunrise over the water that puts everything in perspective.
I haven't been to the beach in years,
Joe admitted.
Always working or too tired from working.
That's a shame, living so close to the coast.
Maybe I should make time for it.
Their eyes met again, and this time Elaine was the one who looked away first, suddenly aware of the implication hanging in the air between them.
Maybe you should,
she said softly. The following Wednesday evening, Elaine's phone rang with Joe's number.
Hello?
Are you busy Saturday morning?
Joe asked without preamble.
Not particularly. Why?
I was thinking about what you said about the beach at sunrise. Thought maybe you could show me this perspective-changing view you mentioned.
Elaine's heart skipped. This was an invitation to meet outside their established pattern, outside the safe confines of the bookstore. A deliberate choice to spend time together, creating an opportunity to see each other in a new setting.
I'd like that.
she said.
It means an early start, though. Sunrise is around 6:15 this time of year.
I'm up by 5 anyway for Hemingway's walk. Would you be comfortable meeting at the public beach access near the pier around 6?
That sounds perfect.
After they hung up, Elaine sat on her couch, a mixture of excitement and nervousness fluttering in her stomach. This felt significant, this step beyond their weekly coffee meetings, beyond work calls and text messages. This was deliberately choosing to spend time together, creating new shared experiences. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather, the sky still dark, but with the faintest hint of lightning on the eastern horizon, when Elaine pulled into the beach access parking lot. Joe's truck was already there, and she spotted him waiting near the wooden walkway that led over the dunes to the beach, Hemingway sitting patiently at his side.
Morning.
He greeted her with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes.
Brought coffee.
He held up a thermos.
And Hemingway insisted on joining us. Hope that's okay.
The golden retriever's tail was wagging enthusiastically, and Elaine could see the intelligence in his dark eyes as he assessed her.
Of course it's okay. Hello, Hemingway.
Elaine bent to offer her hand to the dog, who sniffed it politely before giving it a gentle lick of approval.
He usually doesn't warm up to people so quickly,
Joe observed.
Yes, he recognizes good character.
They walked together down to the water's edge, Hemingway trotting ahead of them, occasionally looking back as if to ensure they were following. The beach was deserted except for a few joggers in the distance, and the first hints of dawn were beginning to color the sky in delicate pinks and oranges.
This is my favorite time,
Elaine said, gesturing toward the horizon.
When night isn't quite gone, but morning is definitely coming. The in-between moment.
Joe nodded, his eyes on the gradually brightening sky.
I can see why you come here. It's peaceful in a way I'd forgotten was possible.
They found a spot to sit on the sand, far enough from the water to stay dry, but close enough to hear the gentle rhythm of the waves. Hemingway settled contentedly beside Joe, resting his head on his paws with a satisfied sigh. Joe poured coffee from the thermos into 2 travel cups and handed one to Elaine.
Thank you for suggesting this,
he said quietly.
I forget sometimes that there's a world outside the shop.
Easy to get caught in routines,
Elaine replied.
Call center, home, repeat. Days blur together.
They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sun crested the horizon, painting the ocean in brilliant shades of gold and amber. The moment felt intimate somehow, sharing this quiet beauty together, away from the noise and demands of their usual environments.
Worth getting up early for?
Elaine asked, glancing at Joe's profile, softened in the gentle morning light.
Absolutely.
He turned to look at her, his expression open and unguarded.
Best view I've seen in years.
Something in his tone made Elaine wonder if he was still talking about the sunrise. Their eyes held for a long moment, and she became acutely aware of how close they were sitting, shoulders nearly touching, the warmth of his presence beside her. Hemingway chose that moment to stand up and shake vigorously, sending sand flying in all directions and breaking the tension with his enthusiastic display.
Hemingway!
Joe scolded, but his laugh undermined any real reproach.
Timing, buddy. We need to work on your timing.
Elaine laughed too, brushing sand from her clothes.
He probably thinks we've been sitting still long enough.
Probably right.
Joe stood with a slight wince, then offered his hand to help Elaine up. She took it, feeling the strength and warmth of his fingers as they closed around hers. He didn't let go immediately after she was standing, and for a brief moment they stood face to face, hands still joined, the sunrise painting them both in golden light. Then Hemingway barked impatiently, and Joe released her hand with a smile that held both regret and promise.
Shall we walk a bit?
He suggested.
Since we're here?
They strolled along the water's edge, talking easily about books and movies, kitchen battlefield and car repairs, the small details of their lives that they'd been sharing through text throughout the week. Hemingway trotted alongside them, occasionally darting into the shallow water to splash joyfully before returning to shake himself near Joe's legs.
He's doing that on purpose.
Joe grumbled good-naturedly after the third soaking.
Thinks my jeans are too dry.
He's a dog of strong opinions,
Elaine agreed, laughing at Hemingway's seemingly innocent expression. As they walked back toward the parking lot 2 hours later, Elaine was struck by how natural it felt to be with Joe like this, outside the context of work or their weekly coffee meetings. There was an ease between them now, a comfort in each other's presence that had developed gradually through their calls and texts and shared confidences.
Thank you for showing me your sunrise spot.
Joe said as they reached their cars.
It was worth every early morning minute.
Thank you for the coffee and the company.
Elaine hesitated.
And for Hemingway's seal of approval.
Joe smiled, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from her face, the brief touch sending a shiver through her despite the warmth of the morning.
Still on for Friday at Books and Brews?
He asked.
Always.
As she drove home, Elaine replayed the morning in her mind. The way Joe had looked in the sunrise light, the gentle pressure of his hand helping her up from the sand, the brief touch of his fingers against her cheek. Something was shifting between them, evolving from friendship into something deeper. And for once, she found herself welcoming the change rather than fearing it. Their weekly coffee meetings continued, but now supplemented by regular texts throughout the day, occasional evening phone calls, and Saturday morning trips to the beach that became a new tradition. Each interaction built upon the last, creating layers of shared experiences and growing understanding. One Friday evening in late summer, as they sat in their usual corner at Books and Brews, Joe reached across the table and took Elaine's hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her skin.
I've been thinking about how meeting you has changed things for me.
Elaine's heart quickened. What things?
Everything, really. Joe's eyes held hers steadily. Before we started talking, really talking, I'd resigned myself to a certain kind of life, work until my body gives out, then figure out what comes next. No real plans, no real hope for anything different.
And now?
Now I find myself thinking about possibilities again. Writing, maybe. A life that doesn't revolve entirely around the shop. His fingers tighten slightly around hers. A life that includes spending time with someone who understands me.
The simple honesty of his words touched something deep inside Elaine. I know what you mean. I'd stopped believing certain things were possible for me, too.
Like what?
Like writing something real. Like finding someone who sees me as I am and still thinks I'm worth knowing.
Joe's expression softened. Elaine, you're the most worth-knowing person I've met in years.
The warmth that spread through her chest had nothing to do with the coffee she'd been drinking, and everything to do with the man sitting across from her, holding her hand as if it were something precious.
So are you, she said softly.
They stayed that way for a long moment, hands joined across the table, eyes locked in silent understanding. Something new had been acknowledged between them, something that had been building since that first warranty call months ago. As they walked to their cars later that evening, Joe stopped under the soft glow of a streetlight, turning to face Elaine.
I'd like to take you to dinner sometime, he said. A real dinner, not just coffee.
Elaine smiled, feeling a lightness in her chest that had been absent for too long. I'd like that very much.
Tomorrow night.
Perfect.
In the quiet of the parking lot, with the bookstore lights glowing behind them, they stood close together, neither quite ready to say goodnight. Joe reached out slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted to, and brushed his fingers along her jawline.
I'm very glad you recognized my voice that day, he said softly.
So am I, Elaine replied, leaning slightly into his touch.
The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and unspoken promises. Then Joe smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners in the way that had become so dear to her.
Good night, Elaine. See you tomorrow.
Good night, Joe.
As she drove home, Elaine realized that for the first time in years, she was truly looking forward to what came next. Not just the dinner tomorrow, but all the possibilities that stretched beyond it, possibilities that had seemed impossible before a warranty call connected her to a gruff auto shop owner with kind eyes and a hidden dream of writing. Sometimes, she thought, the most unexpected connections turned out to be the most meaningful ones. Chapter 8. The Writing Encouragement. Their first real date took place at Coastal Kitchen, a small Italian restaurant overlooking the harbor that Joe had chosen specifically because it wasn't one of the chain establishments that dominated most of Palmetto Bay's dining options. Elaine arrived to find Joe already waiting at a corner table, dressed in crisp dark jeans and a button-down shirt that made him look different from the shop owner she was accustomed to seeing, more polished, though no less authentically himself.
You look beautiful,
he said as she approached the table, standing with the old-fashioned courtesy that seemed natural to him. Elaine felt a flush of pleasure at the compliment. She'd taken more care than usual with her appearance, choosing a blue sundress that brought out her eyes and that she rarely had occasion to wear.
Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself.
Thanks. Had to threaten Hemingway with no walks for a week to keep him from shedding all over these clothes.
The restaurant was intimate without being overly romantic, with a view of boats gently bobbing in the harbor and soft lighting that made conversation feel natural. Their booth offered privacy while still allowing them to watch the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink.
How was your day?
Joe asked after they'd ordered seafood linguine for her, chicken parmesan for him.
Actually pretty good. I approved a major engine replacement for a family whose minivan broke down in the middle of a cross-country road trip to see grandparents. The father was so relieved he actually got choked up on the phone.
That must have felt satisfying.
It did. Those are the moments that make dealing with the bureaucracy worthwhile.
Elaine took a sip of her wine, a Pinot Grigio that Joe had suggested, showing yet another side of his knowledge.
How about your shop? Busy day?
Steady but manageable. Had time to finish the quarterly inventory before closing, which almost never happens.
Joe shifted slightly in his chair, and she noticed him wince almost imperceptibly.
Back bothering you tonight?
He looked surprised at her perception.
Just a little. Had to crawl under a lifted truck this morning. Awkward angles. Nothing too bad.
You shouldn't have to work through that kind of pain every day,
Elaine said gently.
Not many options when you own the shop. Can't exactly call in sick when you are the business.
Joe deliberately changed the subject, clearly uncomfortable with prolonged focus on his limitations.
So I started that Catherine Ryan Hyde book you recommended. You were right about the opening chapter pulls you right in.
They spent the next portion of the meal discussing books they'd loved and authors they admired. Joe surprised her again with his breadth of reading, mentioning contemporary fiction alongside classics, poetry mixed with memoirs. His observations were thoughtful and nuanced, showing the kind of deep engagement with literature that couldn't be faked.
For someone who claims he's not educated enough to write, you certainly know good writing when you see it,
Elaine observed.
Reading and writing are different skill sets,
Joe replied, cutting his chicken with precise movements that spoke of years working with his hands.
I can appreciate a well-built engine without necessarily knowing how to design one from scratch.
But you do know how to design engines in a sense. You understand how they work, what makes them run smoothly, what causes them to fail. You can diagnose problems just by listening.
Joe considered this.
I suppose that's true.
Same with writing. You understand story structure, character development, all the elements that make a book work. That's more than half the battle.
Maybe,
Joe conceded.
But you're the one who actually writes. Your fan fiction proves you can finish stories, develop characters, create emotional connections with readers. That's more than I've managed.
Elaine felt the familiar discomfort at the mention of her writing.
It's just fan fiction, not real writing.
You keep saying that, but I'm not convinced. When are you going to let me read something you've written?
She hesitated, torn between her instinctive privacy about her work and the genuine interest in Joe's eyes.
I'm not sure it would be your kind of thing.
Try me.
The waiter arrived with their entrees, providing a momentary reprieve from the question. As they began to eat, Joe let the subject drop, but Elaine found herself considering it. Would it really be so terrible to share her writing with him? He'd been nothing but supportive and encouraging about her dreams.
I might have something you could read,
she said finally.
A short story I wrote a few months ago based on Kitchen Battlefield.
Joe's face brightened considerably.
I'd love to read it.
It's a romance,
she warned.
Between two contestants on the show.
Even better. I've been watching enough episodes now to actually know who some of the recurring characters are.
The genuine enthusiasm in his voice dispelled some of Elaine's anxiety.
Okay, I'll email you a link after dinner.
Thank you for trusting me with that,
Joe said, his expression serious.
I know sharing your writing isn't easy.
The rest of the dinner passed pleasantly, with conversation moving to lighter topics. Upcoming Kitchen Battlefield episodes, books they wanted to read, Joe's ongoing battles with Hemingway over couch territory. When the check arrived, Joe insisted on paying despite Elaine's protest.
Next time is my treat, then,
she said finally.
Deal.
Joe smiled, clearly pleased at the implication of more dates to come. He walked her to her car, their hands finding each other naturally in the warm evening air. At her driver's door, Joe paused, his expression suddenly uncertain.
I had a really wonderful time tonight,
he said.
So did I.
He leaned forward slowly, giving her plenty of time to step back if she wanted to. When she didn't move away, he brushed his lips against hers in a gentle, questioning kiss. Elaine responded, her hand coming up to rest lightly on his chest, as the kiss deepened slightly before they both pulled back.
I'll look forward to that story link,
Joe said, his voice a touch lower than usual.
I'll send it as soon as I get home.
The drive back to her apartment seemed shorter than usual, Elaine's mind filled with the evening, the conversation, the easy companionship, the soft pressure of Joe's lips against hers. Despite her nervousness about sharing her writing, she felt a bubbling excitement as well. Joe had been genuinely interested, not dismissive like so many others might have been. Once home, she opened her laptop and navigated to the fanfiction site where her stories were posted. She scrolled through her works, trying to decide which would be best to share. Finally, she selected a relatively recent one-shot about two contestants finding connection amid the high pressure of a kitchen battlefield finale. It was one of her better efforts, with strong characterization and emotional resonance, that had earned hundreds of positive comments. Her finger hovered over the send button for a long moment before she finally wrote a brief message and attached the link.
As promised, be gentle with your criticism. This is the first time I've shared my writing with anyone besides Trisha.
Within minutes, her phone chimed with a response.
Thank you for trusting me with this. We'll read it tonight and let you know what I think.
Elaine tried to distract herself with television, but her mind kept returning to Joe reading her story, judging her writing, possibly finding it amateurish or simplistic. By the time she went to bed, she had convinced herself that sharing the story had been a mistake. The next morning, Elaine woke to several text messages from Joe, all sent after midnight.
Just finished your story. Wow. Seriously, Elaine, this is really good. The way you developed the relationship between Mark and Daisy felt completely genuine. I could feel the tension of the competition and the connection building between them despite the pressure. The scene where he helps her after she burns her hand, perfect balance of competence and vulnerability from both characters. Please tell me you've written more. I want to read everything.
The flood of positive feedback made her smile even as she felt a flutter of disbelief. Had he really liked it that much? Or was he just being kind? Her phone rang while she was still reading through his messages.
Good morning,
Joe said when she answered.
Sorry for the text barrage last night. Didn't want to call so late, but I had to tell you how impressed I was.
It's fine. You really liked the story?
Liked it, Elaine. It was fantastic. The characters felt real, the competition details were vivid and authentic, and the romance built naturally without feeling forced. You have serious talent.
She felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words.
Thank you. I was worried you were just being nice.
I'm a mechanic. We're not known for sugarcoating things.
Joe replied with a chuckle.
If something's broken, we say so. Your writing is definitely not broken.
It's just fan fiction, though,
she said, the habitual disclaimer slipping out before she could stop it.
Stop saying that,
Joe said firmly.
Good writing is good writing, regardless of whether you created the initial world or characters. The emotional truth in your story, the way you develop the relationship between Mark and Daisy, those skills translate to any kind of fiction.
His conviction was hard to dismiss.
You really think so?
I know so, and I want to read more, if you're willing to share.
Elaine hesitated only briefly.
I have another story you might like. A longer one about a chef who returns to his hometown after failing to win Kitchen Battlefield.
Send it. I'll read it today.
After they hung up, Elaine sent the link to her longer story, a 20,000-word novella that she'd worked on for months. This one had received hundreds of comments from readers, but sharing it with someone who knew her personally still felt like exposing a private part of herself. Throughout the day, Joe sent her messages as he read, commenting on specific scenes or lines he particularly enjoyed. His observations were thoughtful and specific, showing he was engaging with the story on multiple levels: technical craft, emotional resonance, character development. By evening, when he called again, his enthusiasm had only grown.
You should be writing original fiction,
he said without preamble.
You have the talent for it.
I wouldn't know where to start,
Elaine admitted.
Start with what you know: cooking, competition, relationships. The technical aspects of writing dialogue, pacing, character development, you've already mastered those based on what I've read.
You really think I could write a real novel?
I have zero doubt whatsoever.
Joe replied with such conviction that Elaine found herself believing it might be possible.
Maybe I will try,
She said slowly.
I've had an idea for a while, actually. A romance set in the KitcheBattlefield universe, but with original characters.
That sounds perfect. The familiar setting would give you confidence while you develop your own characters and storylines.
They talked for over an hour, Joe asking questions about her story idea and offering suggestions when she hesitated. By the time they hung up, Elaine felt a growing excitement about the possibility of writing something entirely her own. The following Saturday, they met at the harbor for an early morning walk before the heat of the day set in. Hemingway trotted happily alongside them as they strolled along the waterfront, stopping occasionally to watch boats heading out for a day of fishing or pleasure cruising.
Have you started writing your new story yet?
Joe asked, his hand warm around hers.
I made some notes.
Elaine admitted.
Character sketches, mostly. Trying to figure out who these people are before I start writing their story.
That's a smart approach, getting to know your characters first.
What about you? Any progress on your writing dreams?
Joe was quiet for a moment, his free hand flexing unconsciously.
I started keeping a journal, nothing fancy, just observations, ideas for stories. Feels like I need to build the writing muscle before attempting anything bigger.
That's a great first step,
Elaine said encouragingly.
Stephen King talks about that in the book you gave me, writing regularly, even if it's just for yourself.
They found a bench overlooking the water and sat down, Hemingway settling contentedly at their feet with his tennis ball.
Can I ask you something?
Joe said after a comfortable silence.
Of course.
What holds you back from believing in your writing? From what I've read, you have real talent, but you dismiss it so quickly, calling it just fan fiction or not real writing. Why?
Elaine considered the question, appreciating that he'd asked it so directly.
I guess I never had any external validation. No writing teacher telling me I had potential, no English degree to make me feel legitimate. Just me, writing stories in my spare time.
And now, after the hundreds of comments on your stories, after my feedback?
It helps,
she admitted.
But there's still that voice that says I'm fooling myself, that real writers have more formal training, more education, more credibility.
Joe turned to face her more directly.
Let me tell you something about expertise. When I first started working on cars, I thought the guys with all the certifications and degrees must know everything. But I quickly learned that some of the best mechanics I ever met had no formal training at all. They just had thousands of hours of hands-on experience and a natural understanding of how engines work.
Writing seems different somehow.
Is it? You've been reading your entire life, analyzing what works and what doesn't. You've written thousands of words of fiction that connects with readers emotionally. You understand pacing, dialogue, character development, all from practice and observation.
Joe reached over and squeezed her hand gently.
That's apprenticeship, Elaine. That's building expertise through dedication and natural talent.
His perspective made her see her writing journey in a new light. Perhaps all those hours spent crafting fan fiction stories had been more valuable than she'd allowed herself to believe.
Maybe you're right,
she said slowly.
Maybe I have been discounting my own experience.
I know I'm right.
Joe's voice carried absolute certainty.
The question is, are you ready to take the next step? To write something that's entirely yours?
Elaine took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside her, a wall coming down, a door opening.
Yes, I think I am.
Over the next 2 weeks, Elaine began writing in earnest. The story took shape around 2 original characters set in the KitcheBattlefield universe. A former contestant who'd opened a small restaurant in a coastal town after a disappointing elimination, and a food critic with a secret passion for cooking who comes to review the restaurant. Joe checked in on her progress regularly, offering encouragement without pressure. When she sent him the first chapter, his response was immediate and enthusiastic.
This is terrific, Elaine. I already care about both characters, and the setup has me invested in what happens next. Can't wait to read more.
His belief in her became a steady presence, a counterbalance to the doubts that still occasionally surfaced. Each time she hesitated or considered abandoning the project, a text or call from Joe would renew her determination. One evening, as they sat in Joe's living room after dinner, a simple pasta dish he'd prepared using techniques learned from Kitchen Battlefield episodes, Hemingway sprawled across both their laps. Joe asked to see her latest chapter.
I've been stuck on this scene,
Elaine admitted, pulling up the document on her tablet.
The characters are having their first real argument, and I can't get the dialogue right.
Joe read the scene carefully, his brow furrowed in concentration.
I think I see the issue. You're holding back on the conflict, trying to keep both characters likable, but real arguments are messy. People say things they regret.
I'm worried readers won't like Erica if she lashes out at him.
They will if they understand why she's lashing out. What is she really afraid of in this moment?
Elaine considered the question.
Failure. She failed on national television during Kitchen Battlefield, and now she's afraid Mark's review will destroy the restaurant she's built from nothing.
Exactly. So let her express that fear through anger. Let her be flawed and human. Readers will relate to that more than to someone who always says the right thing.
The insight was exactly what she needed. Later that night, after returning home, she rewrote the scene, allowing the character's fear and vulnerability to show through her anger. The result was far more compelling than her earlier attempts. She sent the revised scene to Joe with a simple message.
You were right, thank you.
His reply came minutes later.
The scene is perfect now. This is going to be an amazing book, Elaine.
For the first time, she allowed herself to truly believe it might be. The following Friday, as they sat in their usual corner at Books and Brews, Joe pulled a notebook from his messenger bag with an uncharacteristic nervousness.
I wanted to show you something,
he said.
I've been working on a story idea of my own.
Elaine felt a surge of pleasure and excitement.
Joe, that's wonderful. Tell me about it.
It's just an outline and some character sketches at this point.
He handed her the notebook, his hand slightly unsteady.
A story about a small-town mechanic who restores a classic car for a customer, only to discover the car has a hidden history tied to an unsolved mystery.
Elaine opened the notebook, impressed by the detailed character descriptions and plot points written in Joe's careful script.
This is really good, Joe. You've thought this through very carefully.
It's probably ridiculous,
he said, the uncertainty in his voice reminding her of her own doubts about her writing.
It's not ridiculous at all. It's a compelling premise with interesting characters, and you clearly understand the world you're writing about.
She looked up from the notebook to meet his eyes.
When are you going to start writing it?
That's the problem. By the time I finish at the shop, my hands hurt too much to type for long periods, and handwriting more than a few pages is even worse.
Elaine considered the problem.
What about dictation software? You could speak the story instead of typing it.
Joe looked surprised.
I hadn't thought of that.
Many authors use it, especially those with physical limitations or who want to write faster. You could dictate in the evenings when your hands are too sore for typing.
That might actually work.
Joe looked thoughtful, hope creeping into his expression.
I'll look into it this weekend.
We could be writing buddies,
Elaine suggested with a smile.
Keep each other accountable, share our progress, celebrate the victories, and commiserate over the struggles.
I would like that very much.
Joe reached across the table and took her hand.
Thank you for not dismissing my idea.
Why would I dismiss it? It's a great concept with strong commercial potential.
Because I'm a mechanic with a high school education trying to write a novel. Sounds like the setup for a joke.
Joe Kelly,
Elaine said firmly.
You are a well-read, insightful person with a story to tell. Your job and education have nothing to do with your ability to write that story.
He smiled slowly.
Funny, that sounds exactly like what I've been telling you about your writing.
Maybe we both need to start believing it.
By the end of September, Elaine had completed nearly a third of her novel. The writing came more easily now, her confidence growing with each chapter. Joe had been her first reader throughout, offering thoughtful feedback and constant encouragement. One Sunday afternoon, as they walked along the beach, with Hemingway chasing seagulls in the distance, Joe asked about her long-term goals for the book.
Have you thought about publishing it when it's finished?
Elaine had been carefully avoiding that question, even in her own mind.
I don't know. That seems like such a huge step.
But a logical one. You're writing a book people would want to read.
Maybe I'll just post it online like my fan fiction, see if anyone likes it.
Joe stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious.
Elaine, this isn't just fan fiction anymore. This is your original story, your characters, your world. It deserves a chance at traditional publishing if that's what you want.
That feels like setting myself up for rejection.
Rejection is part of the process. Every published author has stories about the rejections they received before finding success.
Easy to say when you're not the one being rejected,
Elaine pointed out. Joe laughed.
Fair point, but consider this. Your fan fiction already has hundreds of readers who love your work. That suggests there's an audience for your writing.
I'll think about it.
She promised.
First, I need to actually finish the book.
You will.
Joe said with absolute certainty.
And it's going to be wonderful.
His unwavering belief continued to be a source of strength as she wrote. On days when the words wouldn't come, or when self-doubt crept in, she would reread his encouraging texts or call him for a pep talk. Somehow he always knew exactly what to say to get her back on track. In turn, she encouraged his writing efforts, helping him set up dictation software on his computer and listening to his story ideas. Though his progress was slower due to the physical limitations of his job and the learning curve of new technology, he was steadily building his own novel, one dictated chapter at a time. One evening, as they sat on Joe's couch, each working on their respective writing projects, Elaine looked up to find him watching her with a soft expression.
What?
She asked, suddenly self-conscious.
Just thinking about how different things are now compared to 6 months ago.
He replied.
Back then, neither of us believed we could really write. Now look at us.
Elaine smiled, realizing how far they had both come.
We just needed someone to believe in us until we could believe in ourselves.
Exactly.
Joe set aside his tablet and moved closer, putting his arm around her shoulders.
Thank you for being that person for me.
Thank you for being that person for me,
she echoed, leaning into his embrace. Later that night, driving home with several new chapters saved on her laptop, Elaine reflected on how thoroughly Joe's encouragement had transformed her relationship with writing. What had once been a secret dream, something she'd never believed possible for someone like her, was now taking concrete form as a novel with her name on it. And it had all started with a warranty call and a voice on the phone that had somehow recognized something in her worth believing in. Sometimes, she thought, the most profound changes began with the smallest acts of faith. One person seeing potential where others saw only impossibility. One voice saying you can when the world whispered you can't. The best part was that now she was able to be that voice for Joe, creating a cycle of encouragement that was lifting them both toward dreams they'd barely dared to pursue alone. Chapter 9. Vulnerability and Barriers. October arrived with cooler temperatures and spectacular sunsets that painted the harbor in shades of gold and crimson. Elaine and Joe had fallen into a comfortable routine. Friday evenings at Books and Brews, Saturday mornings at the beach with Hemingway, and at least one dinner date during the week. Their relationship had deepened gradually, each interaction revealing new layers of connection and understanding. On this particular Friday evening, however, Joe was unusually quiet as they sat in their corner of the bookstore cafe. His face looked drawn, with tension lines around his mouth that Elaine had come to recognize as signs of significant pain. He held his coffee cup carefully, as if his hands weren't quite steady.
Rough day?
She asked gently, reaching across the table to touch his hand. Joe nodded, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes.
One of the worst in a while. Had to replace the entire suspension system on a lifted pickup, awkward angles, heavy components, everything that makes my back scream for mercy.
Should we have rescheduled? You could have been resting at home instead of forcing yourself out.
And miss seeing you? Not a chance.
His fingers curled around hers.
Besides, Hemingway would have given me those judgmental looks all evening if I'd canceled our plans. He's gotten used to our Friday nights.
Elaine smiled at the mention of his dog, but remained concerned about the obvious discomfort Joe was trying to hide.
There has to be something that would help with the pain. Have you tried different treatments recently?
A shadow crossed Joe's face, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair.
Tried everything over the years, seems like. Physical therapy, chiropractic work, acupuncture, massage therapy. Even did yoga for a while when nobody from the shop could see me doing it.
What about medical intervention, surgery, or those steroid injections you mentioned?
Doctors say surgery is risky at this point, might make things worse instead of better, and I've been putting off the steroid injections because...
He trailed off, looking embarrassed.
Because what?
Because I've read too many horror stories about side effects. Plus, there's this stubborn part of me that thinks I should be able to handle this on my own.
Joe sighed heavily.
But I might be reaching the point where stubborn pride isn't serving me anymore. The pain's getting worse every month, and the shop's busier than it's ever been.
The admission clearly cost him, revealing vulnerability that went against his self-sufficient nature. Elaine squeezed his hand gently.
I hate seeing you in this much pain,
she said softly.
Been dealing with it for so long, I almost forget what it's like to not hurt somewhere.
Joe took a careful sip of his coffee.
But enough about my aching back. That's not why we're here. How's the novel coming along?
Elaine recognized the deliberate change of subject but allowed it, understanding his need to focus on something more positive.
Actually, I hit a wall this week. Chapter 15 is giving me fits. The confrontation scene between Erica and Mark? Yes, I keep writing and deleting the same paragraphs over and over. Nothing feels authentic.
Joe considered this thoughtfully, his expression shifting into the analytical mode she'd come to recognize when he was solving problems. What's the real issue between them at this point? Beyond the surface argument about the restaurant review?
Trust, I think. He doesn't trust her intentions because of past betrayal from other critics, and she doesn't trust herself to be honest about her feelings because vulnerability has always led to pain.
So maybe the argument shouldn't be about the review at all. Maybe it should be about those deeper fears they're both carrying.
Elaine felt a spark of inspiration at his insight. That makes perfect sense. They're not really fighting about the restaurant. They're fighting about whether it's safe to let someone matter to you.
Exactly. Joe's expression softened, and she wondered if he was thinking about more than just her fictional characters. People rarely argue about what they say they're arguing about. The real conflict is usually buried underneath.
Voice of experience?
A shadow passed over his face, deeper than the usual flicker of discomfort from his chronic pain. My ex-wife Linda and I fought about everything except the real issues. Money, schedules, household chores, all just stand-ins for the fact that she felt trapped in small-town life, and I was too busy trying to build my business to notice she was drowning.
This was the first time Joe had mentioned his ex-wife in any detail beyond the bare facts of their divorce. Elaine treaded carefully, sensing fragile ground.
That must have been incredibly difficult for both of you.
Looking back, I can see all the warning signs I missed. Too focused on proving I could make something of myself after growing up with nothing. He stared into his coffee cup, lost in painful memories. By the time I realized how unhappy she was, she'd already checked out emotionally, found someone who made her feel alive again.
I'm sorry, Joe.
He shrugged, the movement causing another wince of pain. Ancient history now, but it taught me something important about paying attention to what people actually need, not just what I think they need.
Elaine nodded, understanding how past relationships shaped current ones. My last serious relationship ended because he thought my writing was a waste of time. Said I should focus on realistic goals instead of childish fantasies.
He sounds like an idiot, Joe said with unexpected vehemence.
He was practical-minded, saw the world in terms of concrete achievements, measurable success. Creative pursuits didn't fit his definition of worthwhile activities. Elaine smiled ruefully. We were fundamentally incompatible, but it took me too long to accept that.
His loss, Joe said simply. Anyone who can't see the value in your writing in any creative expression doesn't deserve to be part of your life.
The certainty in his voice warmed her in ways that had nothing to do with the coffee shop's atmosphere. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both reflecting on past relationships and current understanding.
Would you like to get out of here?
Joe asked suddenly.
Go somewhere we can really talk without worrying about closing time?
Elaine nodded.
Your place?
If that's okay, Hemingway would love to see you, and my couch is definitely more comfortable than these chairs.
Joe's apartment above the auto shop was small, but meticulously organized, reflecting the careful attention to detail that carried over from his professional life. The living area featured a comfortable leather couch, bookshelves filled with an eclectic collection of titles, and large windows that overlooked the quiet street. Hemingway greeted them enthusiastically, his whole body wiggling with joy at their arrival.
Someone missed you,
Joe observed as the golden retriever lavished attention on Elaine despite her attempts to protect her dress from enthusiastic paws.
The feeling's mutual,
she replied, kneeling to properly greet the dog.
Hello, handsome boy. Have you been taking good care of your dad?
After making tea, Joe moved more carefully than usual, and she noticed him gripping the counter for support. They settled on the couch, with Hemingway sprawled contentedly across both their laps. The intimate setting seemed to encourage deeper conversation.
Tell me something you've never told anyone else,
Joe said, his voice soft in the quiet room. Elaine considered the question. feeling safe enough in his presence to reveal something true and vulnerable.
I still have nightmares about foster care sometimes. Not often anymore, but they still come.
Joe's expression grew serious, his hand finding hers.
What kind of nightmares?
Being moved in the middle of the night without warning, losing all my belongings again, never knowing if the next placement will be better or worse than the last one.
She stroked Hemingway's soft fur as she spoke, the dog's warm presence comforting.
The uncertainty was the hardest part, never feeling like I belonged anywhere, never trusting that I could stay.
That explains a lot about your writing.
Joe observed gently.
Your characters are always searching for connection, for a place where they truly fit.
The insight surprised her.
I never thought about it that way, but you're probably right.
How many different homes did you live in?
7 different placements over 12 years. Some were okay, a couple were genuinely good, one was...
She trailed off, old memories surfacing unbidden. Joe's hand tightened around hers.
You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
It was my 3rd placement.
Elaine continued after a moment, needing to share this piece of her history with him.
The foster father had a drinking problem, and when he drank, he became violent. Not with the kids directly, but with his wife. Hearing it through the walls, seeing the aftermath, it leaves marks that don't show.
I can imagine,
Joe said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood difficult childhoods.
My mother's boyfriends were cut from similar cloth. Not all of them, but enough to make home feel like a place where you held your breath and waited for the explosion.
Their shared experience of childhood instability created another layer of understanding between them. Elaine squeezed his hand, grateful for his willingness to meet her vulnerability with his own.
Is that why you're so determined to make your shop successful? To create something stable and permanent?
Joe nodded slowly.
Probably. Never thought about it explicitly. But yes, the shop is mine. No one can take it away. No one can tell me to pack up and leave. First time in my life I've had that kind of security.
I understand that feeling completely. My apartment isn't much, but it's mine, my safe space.
They sat in comfortable silence, the weight of shared confidences settling between them like a bridge built from mutual trust.
Your turn,
Elaine said finally.
Tell me something you've never told anyone.
Joe was quiet for so long that she thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was low and careful, as if the words were difficult to speak aloud.
I'm afraid my body's giving out faster than I expected. The pain's getting worse every month, and I'm not sure how many more years I can keep doing this work.
The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest.
What will you do?
Elaine asked gently.
That's the question that keeps me up at night.
Joe shifted carefully, adjusting his position to ease his back.
I have some savings, but not enough to retire early. The shop makes decent money, but only because I do most of the complex work myself. If I had to hire another master mechanic to replace me, the profit margins would be much tighter.
Could you sell the business?
Maybe, eventually, but who wants to buy an auto shop where the owner can no longer do the work that made it successful?
He sighed, the sound heavy with worry.
That's why the writing means so much to me now. It feels like a possible lifeline when my current path becomes unsustainable.
Then we need to make sure you keep writing.
Elaine said firmly.
Every day, even if it's just dictating for 15 minutes. No excuses, no giving up when progress feels slow.
Joe smiled at her determination.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm serious, Joe. You have a gift for storytelling, for understanding what makes people tick. Your novel could be something really special if you give it the attention it deserves.
So could yours.
He reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle.
Maybe we should make a pact. No matter what happens, we keep writing. No excuses, no surrendering to doubt when things get difficult.
Deal.
Elaine agreed.
We hold each other accountable.
They sealed the agreement with a gentle kiss that deepened as Joe's hand came up to cradle her face. When they finally broke apart, both were smiling.
You're good for me, Elaine Cooper.
Joe said softly.
You make me believe things are possible that I'd given up on.
You do the same for me.
The following Wednesday evening, Elaine called Joe in a state of mild panic, her voice tight with anxiety when he answered.
I got an email from the KitcheBattlefield fan site administrator,
she said as soon as he picked up.
They want to feature my newest story in their monthly newsletter. They say it's one of the most popular pieces on the site this year.
Elaine, that's fantastic news.
Joe's genuine excitement came through clearly despite her obvious distress.
Congratulations.
But what if it brings more attention to my writing? What if thousands of people read it and decide it's terrible?
Or what if thousands of people read it and love it?
Joe countered gently.
Which seems more likely given your track record with readers?
Elaine took a shaky breath.
You're right. I'm catastrophizing again.
It's okay to be nervous. This is important to you, and recognition can feel scary even when it's positive. But don't let fear stop you from accepting acknowledgement you've earned.
When did you get so wise about handling anxiety?
I have my moments,
Joe replied with a chuckle.
Mostly involving conversations with Hemingway about whether mechanical problems have emotional solutions.
Thank you for talking me off the ledge. I already accepted their offer, actually. Just having a delayed panic attack.
That's my girl brave, even when you're scared.
The casual endearment sent a warm flutter through her chest.
Thank you for believing in me, even when I don't believe in myself.
Especially then. That's what people who care about each other do.
The word care hung between them, weighted with meaning that went beyond simple friendship.
I care about you too, Joe, more than I expected when this all started.
Same here,
he said softly.
This whole thing between us, it's become more important than I was prepared for.
Thursday evening brought another development in their relationship. Elaine had agreed to come over for dinner. Joe's attempt at making risotto using techniques he'd learned from Kitchen Battlefield episodes. The result was imperfect but delicious, and more importantly, it represented his effort to connect with something she loved.
I can't believe you've been secretly studying Chef Anton's risotto technique just to surprise me,
Elaine said as they sat at Joe's small kitchen table, candlelight casting a warm glow over their meal.
Research for understanding your world better,
he claimed with a smile.
Also, I was getting tired of eating the same 5 things I know how to cook.
After dinner, they settled on the couch to watch the latest Kitchen Battlefield episode together, a routine they'd established over recent weeks. Joe's arm rested comfortably around Elaine's shoulders. Hemingway sprawled across their feet like a furry ottoman.
I've been thinking,
Joe said during a commercial break, his voice taking on a more serious tone,
about what you said regarding medical intervention for my back.
Elaine turned to look at him.
And?
I made an appointment with a spine specialist in Charleston to discuss treatment options, including those steroid injections I've been avoiding.
Joe, that's a huge step. What changed your mind?
He was quiet for a moment, his hand tracing patterns on her arm.
Several things. The pain's definitely getting worse. That's impossible to ignore anymore. But also...
He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully.
Having something to look forward to makes me want to fix this if I can.
Something?
Someone,
he corrected, meeting her eyes.
You, us. This future we've been talking about where we both pursue our writing dreams and support each other, and I want to be fully present for that, not constantly distracted by, pain.
Elaine felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, moved by his honesty and the implication of his words.
That means everything to me.
You mean everything to me?
Joe replied simply.
More than I expected when a warranty administrator first helped me with a Honda Civic claim.
She laughed softly, leaning into his embrace.
Life takes the most unexpected turns.
The best ones usually do.
The spine specialist appointment was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Joe asked Elaine to accompany him, a request that revealed both his trust in her and his anxiety about the consultation.
Of course I'll come,
she assured him.
What time should I pick you up?
The appointment's at 10, but you don't have to take time off work for this. I can drive myself.
I want to be there,
Elaine said firmly.
I already requested the morning off.
The drive to Charleston was quiet. Joe tensed beside her as she navigated the morning traffic. At one point, he reached over and took her hand.
Thank you for coming with me. I hate medical appointments, always have.
I gathered that from the fact that you've been avoiding them for years, despite chronic pain.
He smiled ruefully.
Fair point.
The specialist's office was modern and efficient, with the kind of sterile professionalism that made Joe visibly uncomfortable. After a brief wait, they were called into an examination room where Dr. Franklin, a petite woman with a direct manner, introduced herself.
Mr. Kelly, I've reviewed your records and the recent MRI. You have significant sciatic nerve compression from a herniated disc at L4, L5, as well as some facet joint inflammation that's contributing to your chronic pain.
Joe nodded grimly, his expression tight.
And the treatment options?
Given the duration and severity of your symptoms, I would recommend epidural steroid injections as a first approach. They're minimally invasive with a high success rate for patients with your specific condition.
What are the risks?
Joe asked, his voice carefully controlled. Dr. Franklin outlined potential complications, which were minimal, and addressed Joe's concerns about long-term effects.
For most patients, the benefits far outweigh the potential risks, especially when chronic pain is significantly impacting quality of life.
Joe glanced at Elaine, who gave him an encouraging nod.
When could we schedule this procedure?
He asked.
I have an opening this Friday morning. The procedure itself takes about 15 minutes, but with preparation and recovery monitoring, plan to be here for about 2 hours. You'll need someone to drive you home afterward.
I'll drive him,
Elaine said immediately. Dr. Franklin smiled approvingly.
Excellent. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Kelly?
How soon would I notice improvement if it works?
Some patients experience relief within 24 to 48 hours. For others, it may take a week for the full anti-inflammatory effects to manifest. I recommend taking it easy for a few days after the procedure, regardless.
After scheduling the injection and receiving pre-procedure instructions, they headed back to Palmetto Bay. Joe was quiet for the first part of the drive, processing the information.
Having second thoughts?
Elaine asked gently.
No, just wondering why I waited so long to try this.
He gazed out the window at the passing landscape.
Pride, I guess, or fear, maybe both.
What were you afraid of?
That it wouldn't work, that I'd get my hopes up for relief and be disappointed.
Joe turned to look at her.
Or maybe I was afraid it would work, and I'd have to admit I suffered needlessly for years because I was too stubborn to try.
Elaine reached over to squeeze his hand.
Either way, you're doing something about it now. That's what matters.
Because of you,
He said softly.
You make me want to be better, to fix what can be fixed, so I can fully participate in this life we're building together.
You would have gotten there on your own eventually.
Maybe. But having you in my corner makes it easier to face the scary stuff.
The simple honesty of his words touched her deeply.
I'm glad I can be here for you.
Friday morning arrived with a mix of anxiety and hope. Elaine picked Joe up early, noting the tension in his shoulders and the tight lines around his mouth.
Nervous?
She asked as they drove toward Charleston.
A little,
He admitted.
more hopeful than nervous, though. Ready to try something different.
The procedure went smoothly according to Dr. Franklin's assessment. Elaine waited in the recovery area, alternating between reading and anxiously checking the time. When a nurse finally wheeled Joe out, he looked tired but relieved.
All done.
He said with a small smile.
Easier than I expected, actually.
How do you feel?
Still numb from the local anesthetic. They said that'll wear off in a few hours, and then we'll see if it helps the nerve pain.
After the required observation period, they were cleared to leave. Joe moved carefully but seemed more relaxed than he'd been that morning.
Home?
Elaine asked as they reached the car.
Actually, could we stop at the beach on the way? Just for a few minutes? I could use some fresh air and perspective.
They found their usual quiet spot overlooking the water, the autumn sun casting long shadows across the sand. Joe sat carefully on their favorite bench, Elaine beside him.
Thank you for being here today.
He said, taking her hand.
Having you with me made this much less intimidating.
I'm glad I could help.
She studied his face, noting the hope mixed with caution in his expression.
How are you really feeling about all this?
Physically still waiting to see. Emotionally,
He paused, considering.
grateful, hopeful, a little vulnerable, I guess.
Vulnerable how?
Letting someone see me at less than my strongest, admitting I need help, hoping for relief while trying to prepare for disappointment.
His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand.
All of it feels exposing in ways I'm not used to.
Vulnerability takes more courage than pretending everything's fine when it's not.
Elaine said softly. Joe nodded slowly.
I'm learning that, slowly but surely.
They sat in comfortable silence, watching the waves roll in. After a while, Joe spoke again, his voice thoughtful.
I keep thinking about your novel about Erica and Mark, how they both have to become vulnerable to find real connection.
Art imitating life?
Elaine suggested with a smile.
Maybe life imitating art.
He turned to face her fully.
Either way, I'm grateful we found each other, Elaine. Even if this injection doesn't work, even if my back never gets better, knowing you has made everything brighter.
The raw honesty in his voice moved her deeply.
I feel the same way, Joe. You've changed how I see myself, how I think about my future and what's possible.
He leaned forward, slowly and carefully, and kissed her with a tenderness that spoke volumes about the depth of his feelings. Unlike their previous kisses, this one held no hesitation, no questioning, only certainty, and a depth of emotion that took her breath away. When they finally broke apart, Joe rested his forehead against hers.
I'm falling in love with you,
he said quietly.
Probably have been since you approved that first Honda Civic claim without giving me grief about it.
Elaine smiled, her heart full.
I'm falling in love with you too. Warranty claims and all.
The weekend passed in a blur of quiet moments and careful anticipation. Joe was under strict instructions to rest, which he grudgingly obeyed only because Elaine and Hemingway both enforced the doctor's orders with unwavering determination. By Sunday evening, as they sat on his couch, sharing takeout and watching an old movie, Joe suddenly sat up straighter with a look of amazement.
What is it?
Elaine asked, noticing the change in his expression.
I just realized I've been sitting here for 2 hours without shifting position,
he said, wonder in his voice.
No shooting pain down my leg, no burning sensation. The deep ache is still there, but that stabbing nerve pain.
The injection is working?
I think so. This is...
Joe moved experimentally, twisting slightly at the waist without the usual sharp intake of breath.
I can't even describe it. I'd forgotten what it feels like to sit without that constant electric shock running down my leg.
The relief and joy in his face brought tears to Elaine's eyes.
Oh, Joe, I'm so happy for you.
If I'd known it could be this effective, I would have done this years ago.
He shook his head in amazement.
All that suffering for nothing, just stubborn pride and unfounded fears.
Not for nothing,
Elaine said gently, taking his hand.
You weren't ready before, and now you are.
Joe pulled her into an embrace, holding her close.
Thank you for pushing me to get help, for coming with me, for everything.
Always,
she replied, resting her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. As they sat together in the quiet apartment, Hemingway snoring softly at their feet, Elaine realized how much had changed since that first warranty call months ago. They had moved from professional acquaintances to friends to something much deeper, each step bringing new understanding and connection. The barriers they had built, Joe's physical pain and reluctance to seek help, Elaine's doubts about her writing and fear of failure, were slowly coming down, replaced by shared vulnerability and growing trust. There would be more challenges ahead, more fears to face, but they would face them together, each stronger for having found the other.
What are you thinking about?
Joe asked softly, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm.
How unexpected life can be,
Elaine replied.
How the most important connections often come from the most ordinary beginnings.
A warranty call,
Joe said with a smile in his voice.
A warranty call,
she agreed, nestling closer to him, grateful for whatever twist of fate had brought them together and for the courage they'd found to let down their defenses and trust in love. Chapter 10, The Crisis. Joe's chest felt like someone had parked a truck on it. The wrench slipped from his grip, clattering to the concrete floor of Big Joe Auto Repair as he doubled over, gasping. The sciatic pain that had been his constant companion for years suddenly seemed like nothing compared to this crushing weight.
Not now.
He wheezed, gripping the edge of the workbench.
Not today.
But his body had other plans. The world tilted sideways as Joe collapsed, his golden retriever barking frantically from the office doorway. The next thing Joe knew, he was floating above himself, watching paramedics work over his body on the garage floor. Everything felt strangely peaceful up here, away from the chronic pain that had defined his existence for 2 decades. He could see his whole life spread out below him like a map. There was 14-year-old Joe, learning to fix cars because it was the only thing that made sense in a world where fathers disappeared and mothers brought home men who threw beer bottles at walls. There was 18-year-old Joe, changing truck tires in the rain, studying mechanic manuals by lamplight in his tiny apartment. 20 years at the dealership, his back getting worse with each oil change, each brake job. Each day he told himself he was building toward something better. And there was his shop. His dream made real, but at what cost? His body was breaking down, one vertebra at a time. How much longer could he keep this up? Another year? 5? Then he saw Elaine. Beautiful, kind Elaine, who made him laugh even when his back screamed in protest. Who believed he could write. Who read his amateur attempts at stories and saw something worth encouraging. who watched Kitchen Battlefield with the same enthusiasm he reserved for his favorite novels. What was he waiting for?
Sir, can you hear me?
Joe's eyes fluttered open to fluorescent hospital lights and the steady beep of machines. A young doctor with kind eyes was shining a flashlight at his pupils.
Welcome back, Mr. Kelly. You gave us quite a scare.
Heart attack?
Joe's voice came out as a croak.
Mild one, but yes. You're going to be fine, but we need to talk about some lifestyle changes.
Joe nodded, but his mind was already made up. The out-of-body experience had shown him something he had been too stubborn to see. Time was not infinite. Dreams deferred could become dreams denied.
Doctor,
he said, struggling to sit up.
How long before I can go home?
Let's focus on getting you stable first.
But Joe was already planning. He would sell the shop, take the money, and buy himself time to write. The decision felt as natural as breathing, as inevitable as sunrise. While Joe lay in his hospital bed making plans for a new future, trouble was brewing across town at Brenda's Hair Palace on Main Street. Brenda Hartwell had been cutting hair in Palmetto Bay for 15 years, and in those 15 years, she had watched her ex-husband leave her for a younger woman, seen her daughter move to Atlanta, and rarely call, and felt her dreams of opening a day spa crumble under the weight of small-town economics. At 43, she had resigned herself to a life of washing and setting the same heads week after week, listening to everyone else's problems while her own piled up like unpaid bills. The rejection from Joe Kelly 6 months ago had been the final insult. She had worked up the courage to ask him out after his divorce, thinking they might find comfort in each other's loneliness. Instead, he had politely but firmly declined, mentioning he was not ready to date yet. 2 weeks later, she had seen him at the bookstore with that warranty girl, both of them laughing like teenagers. Apparently, he had meant he wasn't ready to date her.
I heard Joe Kelly had a heart attack,
said Mrs. Henderson, settling into Brenda's chair for her weekly wash and set.
Oh, yes?
Brenda said, working shampoo into the older woman's gray hair.
Terrible thing, though I can't say I'm surprised. What do you mean?
Brenda lowered her voice conspiratorially, the way she did when she was about to share something particularly juicy. Well, I probably shouldn't say anything, but stress can cause heart attacks, you know.
What kind of stress?
The kind that comes from keeping secrets. Brenda's scissors clicked with surgical precision. You know his ex-wife, Linda? The one who left him about 5 years ago? Mrs. Henderson leaned forward. I remember her. Pretty little thing. Always seemed nervous around him. Nervous is right, Brenda said, her voice taking on a concerned tone that masked the satisfaction she felt at finally having Mrs. Henderson's complete attention. I ran into her cousin at the mall in Charleston last month. You know how family talks. This was only partially true. Brenda had seen Linda's cousin, but they had only exchanged pleasantries about the weather. Apparently, Linda never really told anyone the real reason she left, Brenda continued, building her story carefully. But family knows family, if you understand me.
What did she say? Well, according to her cousin, Linda was always making excuses for bruises, wearing long sleeves in summer, that sort of thing. Said Joe had a terrible temper when he'd been drinking.
Mrs. Henderson gasped. Domestic violence. I'm not one to spread gossip, Brenda said, the lie sliding easily off her tongue. But when a man has a heart attack that young, sometimes it's because the stress of keeping secrets catches up with him. By the time Mrs. Henderson left the salon with her freshly styled hair, she was already mentally composing the phone call she would make to her sister. By closing time, 3 more clients had heard variations of the story, each version growing slightly more dramatic with each telling. The next morning, the gossip reached Miller's coffee shop during the breakfast rush. By noon, it had made its way through the post office and the bank. By evening, half the town was whispering about Joe Kelly's secret history of abuse. Elaine first heard about it on Tuesday, 3 days after Joe's heart attack. She was at her desk, processing a particularly complex warranty claim, when her supervisor Margaret approached with an unusual expression on her face.
Elaine, do you have a minute?
Of course. What's wrong?
Margaret glanced around the busy call center, then leaned closer. I heard something disturbing about that auto shop owner you've been seeing. Joe Kelly? Elaine's blood turned to ice. What about him? Did something happen? Another heart attack? No, nothing like that, but... Margaret hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. There's talk going around town about why his wife really left him. The words hit Elaine like a physical blow. She gripped the edge of her desk, her knuckles turning white. What kind of talk?
People are saying she left because he was abusive, that he used to hit her.
The familiar panic rose in Elaine's chest, the same terror she had felt as a child listening to her foster father's rage through thin walls. The sound of shouting, the crack of a hand against skin, the quiet sobbing that followed. She had sworn she would never put herself in that position again. That can't be true, she whispered. But even as she said it, doubt began to creep in. Joe's gruffness with difficult customers, his admitted struggles with anger, the way he watched his employees like a hawk. His father had left when he was young, and his mother had brought home a parade of boyfriends who weren't good to her. Wasn't abuse often cyclical? I hope it's not true, Margaret said gently, but I thought you should know what people are saying. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Elaine mechanically processed claims and answered calls, but her mind was spinning. Every interaction she had ever had with Joe, replayed in her memory, reframed through this new, terrible lens. Had she been naive? Had she ignored warning signs because she was so desperate to be loved? Joe's hands were so strong from years of mechanical work. When he held her, she felt small and fragile. Had she mistaken control for protection? At lunch, she sat in her car and tried to call Tricia, but her friend was out sick with the flu. She started to dial Joe's number twice, then stopped. What would she say? How could she ask the man she loved if he had beaten his ex-wife? Instead, she drove home early, claiming a headache, and spent the evening pacing her apartment, her mind racing with doubt and fear. Joe called that evening, as he had every night since getting out of the hospital.
Hey, beautiful. How was your day?
Elaine stared at her phone, her finger hovering over the answer button. When she finally picked up, her voice was strained.
Fine, just tired.
Want me to come over? I could bring dinner. Like the doctor says I need to take it easy, but I'm going stir crazy in this apartment.
The thought of Joe in her space, so much bigger and stronger than her, made her chest tighten with panic. No, she said quickly. I mean, I'm not feeling well. I think I'm coming down with something.
Oh, well, let me know if you need anything. I could bring you soup or...
I'm fine, Joe. I just need to rest.
There was a pause.
Elaine, is everything okay? You sound different.
The concern in his voice, which she had always found comforting, now seemed ominous. Was he checking up on her, making sure she wasn't talking to anyone?
Everything's fine. I have to go.
She hung up before he could respond, then immediately turned off her phone and curled up on her couch, hugging a pillow to her chest. Joe stared at his phone, confusion and hurt warring in his chest. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Elaine had never been cold to him before, never cut him off like that. He thought about driving over to her apartment, but the doctor's words about avoiding stress echoed in his mind. His chest still ached where they had shocked his heart back into rhythm, and the last thing he needed was to ignore medical advice. Instead, he sat in his empty apartment above the shop, his golden retriever pressed against his leg, and wondered what he had done wrong. The next day brought more whispers, more sideways glances. Elaine heard the story again at the grocery store, this time with new details. Someone had heard that Linda Kelly had been hospitalized once, officially for a fall down the stairs, but everyone knew what that really meant. By Thursday, the gossip had reached Tricia's cousin, who called despite Tricia being homesick.
I thought you should know what people are saying about your friend's boyfriend,
the cousin said, and proceeded to share the latest version of the story, which now included allegations that Joe had threatened Linda to keep her quiet. Tricia, despite her fever and congestion, immediately called Elaine.
Honey, we need to talk,
Tricia said when Elaine answered.
I heard something, and I think you need to hear it from me before someone else tells you.
About Joe,
Elaine said flatly.
I already know.
You do? How are you handling it?
I don't know.
Elaine's voice cracked.
I don't know anything anymore.
Friday evening arrived, and for the first time since they had started their weekly tradition, Elaine didn't show up at Books and Brews. Joe waited for 2 hours, calling and texting, growing more worried and confused with each unanswered message. Finally, he drove to her apartment and knocked on the door. Her car was in the parking lot, and he could see lights on inside, but she wouldn't answer.
Elaine, please.
He called through the door.
I don't know what I did wrong, but we can work through it. Just talk to me.
Inside, Elaine sat on her couch with tears streaming down her face, her phone full of increasingly desperate messages from Joe. She wanted to open the door, wanted to run into his arms and forget everything she had heard. But every time she started to move, the memories of her foster care years flooded back, paralyzing her with fear. What if everyone was right? What if she had been fooling herself? What if Joe's gentleness was just an act, and she was one argument away from becoming another cautionary tale? Joe finally drove home, his heart breaking a little more with each mile. Whatever had happened, whatever he had done or failed to do, Elaine was shutting him out completely. The woman who had encouraged his writing dreams, who had made him believe in love again, was treating him like a stranger. By Saturday morning, the distance between them felt like an ocean, and both Joe and Elaine were drowning in their separate misery, neither knowing how to bridge the gap that gossip and fear had carved between them. Chapter 10b, The Crisis. Joe's chest felt like someone had parked a truck on it. The wrench slipped from his grip, clattering to the concrete floor of Big Joe Auto Repair as he doubled over, gasping. The sciatic pain that had been his constant companion for years suddenly seemed like nothing compared to this crushing weight.
Not now.
He wheezed, gripping the edge of the workbench.
Not today.
But his body had other plans. The world tilted sideways as Joe collapsed, his golden retriever barking frantically from the office doorway. The next thing Joe knew, he was floating above himself, watching paramedics work over his body on the garage floor. Everything felt strangely peaceful up here, away from the chronic pain that had defined his existence for 2 decades. He could see his whole life spread out below him like a map. There was 14-year-old Joe, learning to fix cars because it was the only thing that made sense in a world where fathers disappeared and mothers brought home men who threw beer bottles at walls. There was 18-year-old Joe, changing truck tires in the rain, studying mechanic manuals by lamplight in his tiny apartment. 20 years at the dealership, his back getting worse with each oil change, each brake job. Each day he told himself he was building towards something better. And there was his shop, his dream made real, but at what cost? His body was breaking down, one vertebra at a time. How much longer could he keep this up? Another year? 5? Then he saw Elaine Cooper. Beautiful, kind Elaine Cooper, who made him laugh even when his back screamed in protest, who believed he could write, who read his amateur attempts at stories and saw something worth encouraging, who watched Kitchen Battlefield with the same enthusiasm he reserved for his favorite novels. What was he waiting for?
Sir? Sir, can you hear me?
Joe's eyes fluttered open to fluorescent hospital lights and the steady beep of machines. A young doctor with kind eyes was shining a flashlight at his pupils.
Welcome back, Mr. Kelly. You gave us quite a scare.
Heart attack?
Joe's voice came out as a croak.
Mild one, but yes. You're going to be fine, but we need to talk about some lifestyle changes.
Joe nodded, but his mind was already made up. The out-of-body experience had shown him something he had been too stubborn to see. Time was not infinite. Dreams deferred could become dreams denied.
Doctor,
he said, struggling to sit up.
How long before I can go home?
Let's focus on getting you stable first.
But Joe Kelly was already planning. He would sell the shop, take the money and buy himself time to write. The decision felt as natural as breathing, as inevitable as sunrise. 3 days later, Joe Kelly was discharged with a bottle of heart medication and strict orders to avoid heavy lifting. Elaine Cooper had visited twice, bringing him books and homemade soup, her face tight with worry. She held her hand while he told her about his decision to sell the shop.
Are you sure?
She asked.
I mean, it's your life's work.
No.
Joe said, squeezing her fingers.
Writing is my life's work. The shop was just how I paid for it.
Elaine's smile had been radiant.
I'm so proud of you.
But something changed after that. Joe couldn't pinpoint exactly when or why, but Elaine began pulling away. Their phone calls became shorter, more stilted. She canceled their Friday coffee date, claiming she felt sick. When he offered to bring her soup, she declined. By the end of the week, Joe was sitting in his apartment above the shop, staring at his phone and wondering what he had done wrong. His golden retriever hadn't moved from his side in 3 days, the dog seeming to sense that something was terribly wrong.
What did I do wrong, boy?
He asked, scratching behind golden ears.
Everything was perfect, and then...
The heart attack had been scary enough. Waking up in that hospital bed, seeing his mortality spread out before him like a road map, had changed everything. For the first time in years, he had felt hopeful. Selling the shop, pursuing writing, building a life with Elaine, it had all seemed so clear. Now he felt more lost than ever. His chest ached, and he couldn't tell if it was his healing heart or something deeper breaking inside him. The cardiologist had warned him about stress, but how could he not be stressed when the woman he loved had vanished from his life without explanation? Joe picked up his phone again, then set it down. He had already left 6 voicemails. If Elaine wanted to talk to him, she would call. Tuesday evening, Joe tried calling again. When Elaine finally answered, her voice sounded strained and distant.
Hey, beautiful. How was your day?
Fine, just tired.
Want me to come over? I could bring dinner. The doctor says I need to take it easy, but I'm going stir-crazy in this apartment.
No,
she said quickly.
I mean, I'm not feeling well. I think I'm coming down with something.
The sharpness in her voice caught him off guard. This wasn't the gentlewoman who had held his hand in the hospital, who had smiled with such joy when he told her about his writing plans.
Oh, well, let me know if you need anything. I could bring you soup or...
I'm fine, Joe. I just need to rest.
There was something in her tone, something that made his stomach clench with dread.
Elaine, is everything okay? You sound different.
Everything's fine. I have to go.
She hung up before he could respond, leaving Joe staring at his phone in confusion and growing panic. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Elaine had never been cold to him before, never cut him off like that. He thought about driving over to her apartment, but the doctor's words about avoiding stress echoed in his mind. His chest still ached where they had shocked his heart back into rhythm, and the last thing he needed was to ignore medical advice. Instead, he sat in his empty apartment, his golden retriever pressed against his leg, and wondered what had changed. What had he done? What had happened between her radiant smile in the hospital and this cold stranger on the phone? The next few days passed in a blur of unanswered calls and increasingly desperate text messages. Joe tried to focus on the paperwork for selling the shop, on the writing project he had been so excited about, but his mind kept circling back to Elaine's sudden withdrawal. Friday evening arrived, and for the first time since they had started their weekly tradition, Elaine didn't show up at Books and Brews. Joe waited for 2 hours, calling and texting, growing more worried and confused with each unanswered message. Finally, he drove to her apartment and knocked on the door. Her car was in the parking lot, and he could see lights on inside, but she wouldn't answer.
Elaine, please.
He called through the door.
I don't know what I did wrong, but we can work through it. Just talk to me.
Silence. Joe pressed his forehead against the door, his heart breaking a little more with each second of quiet.
I love you,
he said softly.
Whatever this is, whatever happened, I love you.
Still nothing. He finally drove home, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. The woman who had encouraged his writing dreams, who had made him believe in love again, was treating him like a stranger, like someone to be feared. Joe spent the weekend in his apartment trying to write, trying to make sense of what had gone wrong. His golden retriever stayed close, occasionally dropping a tennis ball at his feet as if play might solve everything. On Sunday evening, as Joe sat staring at a blank document on his laptop, his phone finally rang. For a moment, hope flared in his chest. Maybe it was Elaine, ready to explain what had happened. Instead, it was Kevin, his young employee.
Boss? I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know. People are talking.
Talking about what?
About you and your ex-wife. There's rumors going around town that, well, that she left because you hit her.
The words hit Joe like a physical blow.
What?
I know it's not true, boss. Anyone who knows you knows that. But the talk is getting pretty bad. Some people are saying that's why you had the heart attack. Stress from keeping secrets.
Joe sank into his chair, understanding flooding through him like ice water.
How long has this been going on?
Started earlier this week, I think. You know how this town is with gossip. Once it gets started...
Yeah,
Joe said quietly.
I know.
After Kevin hung up, Joe sat in the growing darkness of his apartment, pieces clicking into place. Elaine's sudden coldness, her fear when he offered to come over, the way she had hung up so quickly when he pressed her about what was wrong. She had heard the rumors. She believed them. The woman he loved, the woman who had been abandoned and shuffled between foster homes her entire childhood, who had witnessed domestic violence firsthand. She thought he was capable of hitting a woman. Joe closed his eyes, remembering her stories about foster care, about the fear that had shaped her early years. Of course she would be terrified. Of course she would pull away rather than risk being hurt again. He wanted to call her to explain, to somehow prove that the rumors were lies. But what could he say? How do you prove a negative? How do you convince someone you've never been violent when the entire town is whispering that you have? His golden retriever nudged his hand, and Joe absently scratched the dog's ears.
She's scared, boy, and I don't know how to fix this.
The silence in the apartment was deafening. Outside, the town that had been his home for 20 years was spreading lies about him, destroying the most precious thing in his life. And somewhere across town, the woman he loved was probably lying awake, terrified of the man she had once trusted with her heart. Joe had survived his father's abandonment, his mother's poor choices in men, 2 decades of back-breaking work, and a heart attack. But this losing Elaine to lies and fear might be the thing that finally broke him. Chapter 11. The Dark Moment. Joe's golden retriever hadn't moved from his side in a week. The dog seemed to sense that something was terribly wrong, pressing his warm body against Joe's leg as they sat in the small apartment above the shop. Even Hemingway's favorite tennis ball lay ignored in the corner. Joe stared at his phone, the screen showing 17 unanswered calls to Elaine over the past 7 days. His chest ached, whether from his healing heart or something deeper breaking inside him. He couldn't tell. The cardiologist had warned him about stress, but how could he not be stressed when the woman he loved had vanished from his life without explanation?
What did I do wrong, boy?
He asked the dog, scratching behind golden ears.
Everything was perfect, and then...
The heart attack had been scary enough. Waking up in that hospital bed, seeing his mortality spread out before him like a road map, had changed everything. For the first time in years, he had felt hopeful. Selling the shop, pursuing writing, building a life with Elaine, it had all seemed so clear. Now he felt more lost than ever. He picked up his laptop, thinking he might try to write, to lose himself in the story that had been taking shape over the past few months. But the words wouldn't come. How could he write about love and connection when his own life was falling apart? Joe closed the laptop and reached for his phone again, then forced himself to set it down. He had already left enough messages. If Elaine wanted to talk to him, she would call. The silence in the apartment was deafening. Across town, Elaine sat at her kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She looked terrible dark circles under her eyes, her hair unwashed, still in the same yoga pants and oversized sweater she had worn for 3 days straight. Her phone lay face down on the table, the notification light blinking with another missed call from Joe. She had stopped counting after the 10th voicemail. Each message was the same, confused, hurt, begging her to just tell him what he had done wrong. But how could she explain that she wasn't even sure what was real anymore? The stories kept coming, each one worse than the last. Yesterday, she had overheard 2 women at the grocery store whispering about how Joe's ex-wife had supposedly been hospitalized once with mysterious injuries. This morning, her elderly neighbor had mentioned poor Linda Kelly, and how some men could fool you with their charm. Every time Elaine closed her eyes, she saw 2 different versions of Joe. The gentle man who encouraged her writing, who brought her soup when she was sick, who kissed her like she was precious. And the other Joe, the one from the stories, with angry fists and a violent temper hidden behind kind eyes. Which one was real? Her foster care memories played on repeat. The sound of shouting through thin walls, the way her foster mother would flinch when footsteps approached, the fear that lived in her chest for months until she was moved to another home, only to sometimes find herself in worse situations. She had sworn she would never put herself in that position again, never ignore warning signs, never let love blind her to danger. But Joe had never shown her anything but kindness. Even when he was gruff with warranty companies, he was always patient with her. When he held her, she felt safe, not threatened. Elaine buried her face in her hands. She was so confused, so scared. What if the gossip was wrong? What if she was throwing away the best thing that had ever happened to her over lies? But what if it was true? What if she was being naive, seeing only what she wanted to see? Her laptop sat open on the counter, the kitchen battlefield romance she had been writing still on the screen. She hadn't touched it in a week. How could she write about love conquering all when she couldn't even trust her own heart? By Monday morning, both Joe and Elaine looked like they had been through a war zone. Joe's employees kept asking if he was feeling okay, if maybe he should take more time off after his heart attack. Elaine's supervisor sent her home early, insisting she looked too sick to work. It was Tricia who finally forced the issue. She had been fighting the flu all week, but when her cousin called with the latest gossip, now claiming that someone had seen old police reports about domestic disturbance calls to Joe's house, Tricia dragged herself out of bed and drove straight to Elaine's apartment.
That's it. I'm staging an intervention.
Elaine looked up from the couch where she had been staring blankly at the TV, a cooking show that wasn't Kitchen Battlefield because even that reminded her too much of Joe.
Tricia, you should be in bed. You're still sick.
I'll be fine. But you won't be if this continues. Look at yourself, honey. When's the last time you showered? Or ate something that wasn't crackers?
I'm not hungry.
This is about Joe, isn't it? About what people are saying.
What if it's true? What if I was so desperate to be loved that I ignored all the signs?
What signs? Name one time Joe Kelly made you feel unsafe.
He gets angry with customers.
So do you. So do I. That's not the same thing as hitting a woman.
His father left when he was young. His mother had a parade of boyfriends. Abuse runs in cycles.
Stop. Listen to yourself. You're making excuses to believe gossip over your own experience. When has Joe ever been anything but gentle with you?
Never. But what if...
What if nothing? Elaine, this town thrives on gossip. Remember when they said Mrs. Peterson was having an affair with the mailman? Turned out she was just buying stamps for her grandson's coin collection. Remember when everyone swore the new preacher was embezzling church funds? He was actually using his own money to help families in need.
This feels different.
Does it? Who told you about Joe being abusive?
You did. You said your cousin heard...
From her hairdresser. Who heard it from Mrs. Henderson? Who heard it from someone else?
Tricia paused, thinking.
Actually, let me call my cousin back. I want to trace this to the source.
While Tricia made the call, Elaine went to her computer and did something she probably should have done a week ago. She started researching. Public record search for Joseph Kelly, Palmetto Bay, South Carolina. Police reports, court filings, anything that might support the rumors. Nothing. No domestic violence calls. No restraining orders. No hospital reports filed under suspicious circumstances. She even searched for Linda Kelly, trying to find any evidence of the supposed injuries. Still nothing.
Found it,
Tricia said, hanging up her phone.
My cousin traced it back through 3 people. Guess who the original source is?
Who?
Brenda Hartwell.
The pieces clicked together in Elaine's mind.
The hairdresser who asked Joe out?
The very same. The one who got turned down 6 months ago.
Tricia's expression was grim.
Think about it. Has anyone actually talked to Joe's ex-wife? Has anyone seen police reports? Hospital records? Any actual evidence besides one bitter woman's word?
Elaine felt sick.
Oh God, what have I done?
You protected yourself the only way you knew how,
Tricia said gently.
But honey, sometimes the thing we think is protecting us is actually destroying us. Joe Kelly is not your foster father. He's not any of those men who hurt you before.
But what if I'm wrong? What if I go back to him and...
Then you deal with it. But what if you're right about him? What if you're throwing away the love of your life because you're too scared to find out the truth?
Elaine looked at her phone, still face down on the coffee table.
How do I find out the truth?
You investigate. You ask questions. You talk to people who actually know Joe, not people who heard stories from people who heard stories.
Tricia reached over and squeezed her hand.
And most importantly, you trust your gut. What does your heart tell you about Joe Kelly?
Elaine closed her eyes, thinking of Joe's gentle hands, his patient voice, the way he looked at her like she hung the moon.
My heart says he's a good man.
Then maybe it's time to listen to your heart instead of your fear.
Meanwhile, Joe was having his own crisis of faith. He sat on the floor of his garage, his back against the workbench, surrounded by boxes of parts and tools that represented 20 years of his life. A potential buyer had looked at the shop that morning, a young mechanic from Charleston with ambitious plans and adequate financing. The sale could go through within the month. Joe should have been relieved this was what he wanted, his chance to pursue writing full-time. Instead, he felt empty. What was the point of chasing dreams if he had no one to share them with? His golden retriever dropped a tennis ball in his lap for the third time in an hour.
Not now, boy. I'm not in the mood to play.
The dog picked up the ball and dropped it again, then sat down and stared at Joe with liquid brown eyes.
What?
Joe asked.
What are you trying to tell me?
The dog barked once, sharp and insistent. Joe had rescued this dog 5 years ago, found him abandoned and scared on the side of the highway. For weeks, the dog had cowered whenever Joe moved too quickly, flinched at loud noises, refused to eat unless Joe was across the room. But Joe had been patient. He had earned the dog's trust one day at a time, one gentle touch at a time. He had never given up, even when progress seemed impossible.
You think I should fight for her?
Joe said slowly. The dog's tail wagged once. Joe looked around his garage, at the tools that had been his livelihood for 20 years, at the business he was about to sell to chase a dream that seemed impossible. He had taken a leap of faith with his career. Why was he giving up so easily on love? Maybe Elaine was scared. Maybe something had spooked her. But whatever it was, he owed it to both of them to find out what had gone wrong instead of just accepting defeat. Joe struggled to his feet, his chest still tender from the heart attack, but his resolve strengthening.
You're right, boy. I can't just sit here feeling sorry for myself.
He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for.
Tricia, it's Joe Kelly. I think we need to talk.
The conversation was brief but illuminating. Tricia, still fighting her flu but determined to help, explained about the gossip and its source. She told Joe about Elaine's foster care background, about the trauma that made her so susceptible to fear about domestic violence.
She loves you,
Tricia said bluntly.
but she's terrified. Her past makes it hard for her to trust her own judgment when it comes to men.
What can I do?
Joe asked, his heart breaking for what Elaine must be going through.
Give her some space to figure this out. She's investigating the rumors now, trying to separate truth from fiction. But Joe, when she's ready to hear from you, make sure you're ready to be completely honest about everything. Your divorce, your past, all of it. She needs to know she can trust you with the truth.
After they hung up, Joe sat in his kitchen and thought about honesty, about the parts of his past he had never shared with anyone. His ex-wife Linda had left him for reasons that had nothing to do with violence and everything to do with his inability to communicate his feelings. He had been so focused on building his business, on proving he could make something of himself, that he had forgotten to nurture their relationship. Maybe it was time to tell Elaine the whole truth about why his marriage had failed. Not just the sanitized version about growing apart, but the real story about a man who had been so afraid of being vulnerable that he had driven away the woman he loved. Maybe it was time to trust that love was worth the risk of being completely honestly known. Joe picked up his laptop and began to write. Not the novel he had been working on, but a letter. A letter to Elaine that told her everything about his marriage, his mistakes, his fears, and his hopes. A letter that laid his heart bare and asked for the chance to earn back her trust. Even if she never read it, he needed to write it, because sometimes the most important writing isn't meant for publication, it's meant for healing. As the sun set over Palmetto Bay, two broken hearts began the slow work of mending, each in their own way, both hoping that truth and love might be enough to bridge the chasm that fear and lies had created between them. Chapter 12. The Happy Ending. Elaine had been sitting in her car outside Linda Kelly's apartment complex in Charleston for 20 minutes, trying to work up the courage to knock on the door. After 3 days of investigation, calling the police department, checking court records, even driving by Joe's old house to see if neighbors remembered anything, she had found nothing to support the abuse allegations. Every official record painted Joe as a model citizen. Every person who actually knew him spoke of his kindness and integrity. But she needed to hear it from Linda herself. Tricia's detective work had tracked down Linda's current address through her sister, who still lived in Palmetto Bay. According to the sister, Linda worked as a dental hygienist and lived quietly with her teenage daughter from her second marriage, a marriage that had ended 2 years ago for reasons the sister hadn't elaborated on. Elaine checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. She looked better than she had a week ago, showered, dressed appropriately, though the dark circles under her eyes told the story of too many sleepless nights. She took a deep breath and got out of the car. The apartment complex was modest but well-maintained, the kind of place where working single mothers tried to build stable lives for their children. Elaine climbed the stairs to apartment 2B and knocked before she could lose her nerve. The woman who answered the door was older than Elaine remembered from the few photos she had seen, but still pretty. Linda Kelly, now Linda Morrison, had shoulder-length blonde hair and tired eyes that widened in recognition.
Elaine Cooper,
Linda said, not a question.
I wondered if I might see you.
You know who I am?
Small towns have long memories. My sister told me about the rumors going around.
Linda stepped back from the door.
Come in. We need to talk.
The apartment was small but comfortable, decorated with the kind of careful touches that spoke of someone making the best of limited resources. Family photos lined the mantel, showing Linda with a teenage girl who had her smile.
Coffee?
Linda offered, gesturing toward the kitchen.
Please.
Elaine sat on the edge of the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Linda busied herself with the coffee maker, then turned to face Elaine directly.
I know why you're here, and I need to start by apologizing.
Apologizing?
For not speaking up sooner. My sister called me 2 weeks ago, told me what that hairdresser was saying about Joe. I should have driven down immediately and set the record straight.
Linda's voice was heavy with regret.
But I was embarrassed, ashamed of how I treated him.
Elaine felt her chest tighten.
What do you mean?
Linda poured coffee into 2 mugs and handed one to Elaine before sitting down across from her.
Joe never laid a hand on me, never raised his voice, never made me feel afraid. Even when I said terrible things to him, even when I blamed him for every unhappiness in my life. He never retaliated. He's the gentlest man I've ever known.
The relief that washed over Elaine was so strong she nearly sobbed.
Then why did you leave him?
Linda stared into her coffee cup for a long moment.
Because I was 25 and selfish, and thought love was supposed to feel like a romance novel. Joe was stable, reliable, kind. He worked hard, he loved me, he would have given me everything, but I thought that meant he was boring.
What happened?
I met someone at my job in Charleston, Derek Morrison. He was everything Joe wasn't: flashy, unpredictable, full of grand gestures and dramatic declarations. It felt exciting, like the kind of passionate love I thought I was supposed to want.
Linda's laugh was bitter.
I convinced myself that Joe's steadiness meant he didn't really love me, that his focus on building the business meant he didn't have time for me.
And Derek?
Turned out to be exactly what Joe isn't. Selfish, unreliable, and yes, he did have a temper. I left the most decent man I'd ever known for someone who made me feel like I was starring in my own romantic drama. The drama part turned out to be more accurate than I expected.
Elaine noticed the way Linda unconsciously rubbed her left wrist when she mentioned Derek's temper.
He hurt you?
Not at first. At first it was just verbal cutting comments, put-downs disguised as jokes. Then it escalated.
Linda met Elaine's eyes directly.
Joe never once made me feel small or afraid. Derek made me feel both on a regular basis.
How long were you married to Derek?
3 years. Long enough to have Emma and realize I'd made the worst mistake of my life.
Linda's expression softened when she mentioned her daughter.
Leaving him was the smartest thing I ever did. But leaving Joe was the stupidest.
They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of Linda's confession settling between them.
Can I ask you something?
Linda said finally.
What's Joe like now? Is he happy?
Elaine felt tears prick her eyes.
He was, before I ruined everything by believing lies about him.
You didn't ruin anything. You protected yourself the way you needed to.
Linda leaned forward.
But Elaine, I need you to understand something. Joe Kelly would never hurt you, not physically, not emotionally. When I left him, I said horrible things. I blamed him for my own restlessness, made him think he wasn't enough, wasn't exciting enough, wasn't romantic enough. And you know what he did?
What?
He helped me pack. He never said a bad word about me to anyone. He just let me go. Even when his friends wanted to tell him what a fool I was being, he asked them not to. He said if I wasn't happy with him, then he wanted me to find happiness somewhere else.
Elaine could picture it perfectly, Joe, heartbroken but dignified, putting Linda's needs before his own pride.
I heard he had a heart attack.
Linda continued.
Is he okay?
He's recovering. The doctors say he'll be fine, but it was a wake-up call for him. He's planning to sell the shop and pursue writing.
Writing?
Linda looked surprised.
He always loved books, but I didn't know he wanted to write.
He's very talented. He just needed someone to believe in him.
And you do believe in him.
I do.
Elaine's voice cracked.
I just got so scared when I heard the rumors. My background. I've seen what domestic violence looks like, and when people started saying Joe had that kind of temper.
Your fear makes perfect sense,
Linda said gently.
But Joe isn't like those men from your past. I can promise you that.
How can I fix this? How can I make him understand why I pulled away?
Tell him the truth. All of it. Joe values honesty above everything else. It's probably why my lies and accusations hurt him so much.
Linda paused.
Can I tell you something that might help?
Elaine nodded.
When I left Joe, I expected him to fight for me, to chase after me, to make grand gestures, to prove his love the way Derek did in the beginning. But Joe didn't do any of that. He respected my decision and let me go. At the time, I took that as proof that he didn't really love me.
But now?
Now I realize that letting someone go when you love them, really, letting them make their own choice without manipulation or pressure, that's the deepest kind of love there is. Joe loved me enough to want me to be happy, even if it meant being happy without him.
Linda stood up and moved to the mantel, picking up a framed photo of her daughter.
I spent years trying to teach Emma about healthy relationships, about finding a partner who treats her with respect and kindness. But I had to admit to her that I once had exactly that and threw it away, because I was too immature to recognize its value.
Do you think he'll forgive me?
If Joe Kelly is the same man I knew, he'll probably blame himself for whatever went wrong between you two. That's the kind of person he is. He looks for solutions, not someone to blame.
Linda returned to her seat.
But Elaine, you have to understand something. Joe's heart attack wasn't just physical. When I left him, I broke something in him. It took him years to risk loving someone again. If you're going to go back to him, you have to be sure. You can't run away again the next time someone whispers gossip in your ear.
I won't,
Elaine said firmly.
I love him too much to let fear make my decisions anymore.
Linda smiled, the first genuine smile she'd shown since Elaine arrived.
Then go to him. Don't wait. Every day you spend apart is a day you'll never get back.
An hour later, Elaine was driving back to Palmetto Bay with her heart pounding and her mind racing. She had one more stop to make before she could face Joe. She found Brenda Hartwell closing up the hair salon, counting the day's receipts at the front counter. When the door chime announced Elaine's entrance, Brenda looked up with a carefully neutral expression.
We're closed,
Brenda said, not meeting Elaine's eyes.
I know. I wanted to talk to you about Joe Kelly.
Brenda's hand stilled on the cash register.
I don't know what you mean.
I just spent the afternoon with his ex-wife. Linda had some very interesting things to say about the rumors you've been spreading.
For a moment, Brenda's carefully composed mask slipped, revealing the bitterness underneath.
I don't know what she told you, but...
She told me the truth. That Joe never hurt her, that he's the gentlest man she's ever known, and that she left him because she was too immature to appreciate what she had.
Brenda's face flushed red.
Well, maybe she was too scared to tell you the real truth. Maybe she's still protecting him.
Or maybe you made up those stories because you're bitter that Joe turned you down.
Elaine stepped closer to the counter.
I know what you did, Brenda. I know you're the source of all the gossip.
You can't prove that.
I don't need to prove it. Small towns have long memories, and eventually people figure out who the gossips are. But I want you to know something. Your lies almost destroyed the best relationship I've ever had. They hurt two people who never did anything to deserve it.
Brenda's composure cracked completely.
You think you're so special? Joe Kelly is nothing but a grease monkey with delusions of grandeur. What makes you think you're better than me?
I don't think I'm better than you,
Elaine said quietly.
But I think you deserve better than this. This bitterness, this need to tear down other people's happiness, it's going to eat you alive if you let it.
She turned to leave, then paused at the door.
Joe Kelly is a good man who deserves love and happiness. I'm going to make sure he gets both.
The sun was setting as Elaine pulled into the parking lot of Big Joe Auto Repair. The shop was closed, but she could see lights on in the apartment above. Joe's truck was parked in its usual spot, and she could see the silhouette of him and Hemingway in the window. She sat in her car for a few minutes, gathering her courage. She had a speech prepared, an explanation ready, but suddenly it all seemed inadequate. How do you apologize for believing lies about someone you love? How do you explain that fear made you abandon the best thing in your life? Finally, she got out of the car and climbed the stairs to his apartment. The door was unlocked. Typical Joe, trusting even after everything that had happened. She knocked softly.
Joe? It's me. Can we talk?
She heard Hemingway's excited bark, then footsteps. When Joe opened the door, her heart nearly broke. He looked terrible thinner than he'd been a week ago, with deep circles under his eyes and a wariness in his expression that she'd never seen before.
Elaine.
Her name came out as barely a whisper.
I met your ex-wife today,
She said without preamble.
Linda. I drove to Charleston and asked her to tell me the truth about why she left you.
Joe's eyebrows rose in surprise.
What did she say?
That you're the gentlest man she's ever known. That you never hurt her, never even raised your voice to her. That she left because she was selfish and wanted excitement, and that leaving you was the biggest mistake of her life.
Joe stepped back, gesturing for her to come inside. Hemingway immediately pressed against her legs, his tail wagging furiously, as if he'd been waiting for her return.
I'm sorry I believed the gossip.
Elaine continued, her voice shaking.
I'm sorry I didn't trust my own experience with you. I'm sorry I let my past trauma make me doubt the best man I've ever known.
Joe closed the door and turned to face her.
Your past trauma?
Foster care. I lived through domestic violence situations as a child. When I heard people saying you'd hurt Linda, it triggered every survival instinct I've ever developed.
Tears were streaming down her face now.
But that's not an excuse. I should have trusted you. I should have trusted us.
Joe moved closer, his expression softening.
Elaine, you were protecting yourself the only way you knew how. I understand that.
But I almost lost you. I almost threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too scared to believe in love.
You didn't lose me.
Joe reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she didn't, he cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears.
I've been sitting up here for a week, trying to figure out what I did wrong, how I could have prevented this.
You didn't do anything wrong. This was all me, all my fear, and—
No.
Joe interrupted gently.
This was about two people who've been hurt before, trying to figure out how to trust love again. We both made mistakes.
What mistakes did you make?
I never told you about my marriage. Not really. I gave you the sanitized version about growing apart, but I never explained that Linda left because I was so focused on building my business that I forgot to nurture our relationship. I was so afraid of being vulnerable, of admitting I needed her, that I drove her away with my emotional distance.
Elaine looked up into his eyes, seeing pain and honesty in equal measure.
I should have told you everything from the beginning.
Joe continued.
About Linda, about why she really left, about my own failures as a husband. If you'd known the whole truth, maybe the gossip wouldn't have hit you so hard.
You're not responsible for my reaction to lies.
Maybe not, but I'm responsible for building the kind of trust between us that could withstand lies.
He paused, his hand still cradling her face.
I want to try again, Elaine, but if we're going to do this, we have to promise each other complete honesty. No more sanitized versions, no more protecting each other from difficult truths.
I promise, she whispered. No more running away when things get scary.
And I promise to be completely open with you about my past, my fears, everything.
Joe leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and kissed her with a tenderness that spoke of forgiveness and new beginnings. When they finally broke apart, both were crying.
I love you, Elaine said. I've loved you since that first warranty call, and I never stopped, even when I was too scared to trust it.
I love you too, Joe replied. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that love can be trusted, that good men exist, that you deserve all the happiness in the world.
Hemingway barked approvingly, and they both laughed through their tears.
There's something else, Joe said, leading her to the couch. I wrote you a letter while you were gone, telling you everything I should have told you from the beginning. Do you want to read it?
Elaine nodded, and Joe retrieved several handwritten pages from his desk. As she read his careful script detailing his marriage, his mistakes, his fears, and his love for her, she realized that this crisis had given them something precious, complete honesty, and a deeper understanding of each other's vulnerabilities. 6 months later, Elaine looked up from her laptop as Joe walked into their shared office space above what used to be the auto shop. He was moving with an ease she had never seen before. The steroid injections had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. After decades of chronic pain, Joe was finally free.
How's the Kitchen Battlefield romance coming? He asked, settling into the chair beside her.
The editor loves the revisions. She thinks it has real potential for publication. Elaine still couldn't quite believe it. A real editor had not only read her work, but had offered her a contract.
In the fantasy series?
Trisha is going to be so proud. I'm actually writing dragons. Elaine grinned, though it's more Kitchen Battlefield meets Game of Thrones than traditional fantasy.
The best kind. Speaking of which, how did the cooking lesson go yesterday?
Chef Anton would be appalled, but I think I'm finally getting the hang of risotto. Only took me 20 tries.
Joe reached across their shared desk and took her hand. His own writing was progressing beautifully. The memoir about his journey from tire-changing teenager to auto shop owner to published author was raw and honest and compelling. 3 publishers were currently bidding for it.
I have news, Joe said. The wedding venue called. They can accommodate us on the beach like we wanted.
Elaine's engagement ring caught the light as she squeezed his hand. Perfect. Hemingway will love being part of the ceremony.
He's already picked out his bow tie.
Outside their window, the South Carolina afternoon was warm and bright. The building that had once housed Big Joe Auto Repair had been converted into a combination residence and writing studio, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light and a view of the harbor where they had shared so many morning walks. Neither Joe nor Elaine had ever imagined their lives could change so completely. From a simple warranty call to falling in love, from chronic pain to healing, from dreams deferred to dreams published, it had been a journey neither could have taken alone. But they weren't alone anymore. They had each other, and that made all the difference. Joe opened his laptop and began working on his next chapter. Elaine did the same. And in the quiet office space they shared, surrounded by the gentle sounds of afternoon life and the occasional contented sigh from Hemingway sleeping in his favorite sunbeam, 2 writers worked side by side, building new worlds with words and love and the absolute certainty that sometimes the most important stories begin with the most ordinary moments, like a phone call about a warranty claim that changes everything.